How did Officer Rick Grimes go from baby-faced cop
All available units, high-speed pursuit progress. Linden County units request local assistance.
to post-apocalyptic zombie slayer? Well, we're gonna find that out soon enough. That's right. Today we're going to be covering the entire story of The Walking Dead. It's a long one, so let's just get into it. Okay, but real quick before we directly dive into the episodes, here's a little context. The Walking Dead is a post-apocalyptic horror drama TV series based on the comic book series of the same name. In this world, there's a constant threat of zombies, known as walkers. But there are also human survivors in the show who can be much scarier. The world of The Walking Dead is huge. There's webisodes, video games, and multiple other TV series including Fear the Walking Dead, The Walking Dead World Beyond, Tales of the Walking Dead, The Walking Dead Dead City, The Walking Dead The Ones Who Live, and The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. There's a lot to cover in this universe, but we're only going to cover the main series today. Still, feel free to comment below if you want us to cook up some more Walking Dead stuff for you. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get started. The first episode of the series begins with Officer Rick Grimes on duty with his best friend and partner, Shane, before the zombie apocalypse hits. Rick gets shot in the shoulder and ends up in a coma. He then wakes up several weeks later only to find out that the hospital has been abandoned, without power and a total wreck. Maybe she's just sleeping, Rick? After that, Rick heads home avoiding dead bodies along the way, but his family isn't there. Confused, Rick sits on his stoop outside before getting whacked in the head by a kid with a shovel. Ow! He passes out, then wakes up to a man named Morgan, tending to his wounds with his son, Dwayne. Morgan tells Rick that the zombie apocalypse hit while Rick was in a coma and gives him a few survival tips, like destroying the zombie's brain in order to totally kill them. Standard stuff. The next morning, Rick gets to kill his first walker. That's pretty dang cool. Rick then drives into Atlanta in hopes of finding his family, but he doesn't need to worry because Lori and Carl are safe at a survivor's camp with Shane. Or maybe he does need to worry. Later, Rick eventually makes it to Atlanta on horseback, where he's swarmed by walkers and gets trapped in a tank. All hope isn't lost, though. A voice speaks to him on the radio. In the next episode, Rick is rescued from the tank by Glenn, the guy who's talking to him through the radio. Glenn then leads him to a scavenging group posted up in a department store. And there we meet Merle, Andrea, and T-Dog. They don't look too happy with Rick, as his reckless shooting has attracted a huge horde of walkers. Merle, who is a racist loose cannon, beats up T-Dog to assert dominance over the group. Rick subdues Merle and handcuffs him to a pipe so the rest of them can plan an escape. Well, Officer Friendly sure is not acting friendly. The group cuts through a sewer to escape in a nearby box truck, but before they can pass all of those walkers, they have to cover themselves in dead person blood to disguise they are a live person scent. Eugh. The gang exits the department store and walks among the undead. Rick and Glenn blend in successfully until it begins to rain, washing away any blood and guts. They then make a break for the truck. Glenn draws the horde away with a car alarm so Rick can rescue the others, but T-Dog accidentally drops the handcuff keys down the sewer drain, so they have to leave Merle for the dead. Bummer. Oh well, off to the survivor camp. In episode 3, Glenn leads Rick and the others to the camp. Rick is shocked and overwhelmed to see Lori and Carl. Man, Rick has been on an emotional roller coaster these last few days. Lori is not happy with Shane. She thinks that he told her that Rick was dead all because he wanted to make a move on her. In Shane's defense, I would have assumed Rick was dead in that situation as well. Shane then quickly gets dumped by Lori, obviously. After seeing this guy called Ed slap his wife, Carol, Shane takes his anger out on him. Like, really takes his anger out. Okay, he's still going. The gang then finds and kills a walker near the camp and figures they better relocate soon. Good thinking. Later, Merle's brother, known as Daryl Dixon, turns up from his hunting trip and he's real pissed when he finds out that Rick and the others left his racist brother to die. Rick feels pretty bad though, and he arranges a search party back to the city with Daryl to retrieve Merle. Boom! Headshot. When they get off the roof, Merle isn't there, but his hand is, next to a bloody saw. It looks like the right hand too, so hopefully Merle's a lefty. On to episode 4. Rick and Daryl's rescue party follows a trail of blood and a trail of dead walkers out of the building, indicating that Merle likely cut and cauterized his hand before making an escape.
Nobody can kill Merle but Merle. Don't take that on faith.
Yeah, Daryl, you're gonna jinx it. Jeez. While they're in the city, the gang wants to grab Rick's dropped bag of guns, because of course they want to stock up on weaponry. Soon after though, Glenn gets captured by a gang called the Vatos, who demand the guns in exchange for his return. At the Vato base, there's nearly a shootout, but our heroes stand down when they see that their so-called enemies are caring for and protecting elderly family members in a nursing home, and Glenn is unharmed. Oh, because these people look pooky now, Rick gives them a few firearms and ammo before the group leaves safely with Glenn. When the rescue team gets back to camp, the others are being attacked by walkers. Rick and the others fend them off, but they're too late to save Ed, the wife beater, and Andrea's sister, Amy. At the top of the next episode, the survivor camp is burying their dead in the holes that this dude called Jim conveniently dug in the previous episode. Shane blames Rick for leaving the camp vulnerable, but something tells me that he's just butthurt that his girlfriend dumped him for her husband. Jim is then caught trying to hide his bite. Classic zombie apocalypse stuff, am I right? After that, Rick proposes moving to the state's CDC facility, optimistically believing that the government is working on a cure. Yeah, right. Shane, on the other hand, doesn't believe it's safe. He must be very mad about Lori, considering he was about to shoot Rick until he was caught by this old man called Dale. With friends like these, who needs zombies? The gang then leaves for the CDC, and Jim requests to be left behind, wanting to turn into a walker and hopefully find his zombified family. At the facility, they find a lone scientist named Dr. Edwin Jenner, who has been studying the epidemic for over 190 days with no results. To top that off, while testing, Jenner's biohazard suit was damaged and his study samples were destroyed in the process of emergency precautions, so he can't continue his studies. Jenner is contemplating suicide when he sees Rick and the others through surveillance cameras, begging to be let in before the nearby horde attacks. In the season 1 finale, Rick's group is let into the CDC. Jenner makes everyone take a blood test to prove that they aren't infected. Once that's out of the way, the survivors enjoy the wine and great food at the facility. Shane, ever the buzzkill, pushes Jenner to tell them why there aren't any other scientists left. Many of them left to be with their families or committed suicide when a cure seemed to be less and less likely. Later that night, Shane tries to force himself on Lori, who has no problem defending herself. What an asshole. Next time, scratch him harder, Lori. The next morning, Jenner shows the group a brain scan of an infected patient. He shows them that the infection kills the carrier before activating the parts of the brain that allow the body to move. Jenner calls the body a shell, driven by mindless instinct. In other words, there's no possible cure. Jenner then goes on to say that facilities worldwide have stopped communicating with him, so civilization has likely collapsed. What a bummer. Jenner then locks the group inside and tells them that the building will self-detonate in just under an hour after the fuel reserves run out. He only stayed to work on a cure after everyone else left because it was his wife's dying wish. After a while, Jenner lets the group out, whispering a secret to Rick before they leave. Hey, no secrets during the apocalypse. The premiere episode of season 2 begins with Rick leading from Atlanta to Fort Benning after the big explosion of the CDC. They're forced to stop when they run into a ton of dead cars on the highway, blocking their path. But Dale has to fix up his very own RV, so they figure out now is a good time as any to scavenge for supplies. Or maybe it's not a good time because they're quickly attacked by a horde of walkers and have to hide under the cars. One of the walkers spots Carol's daughter, Sophia, and chases her into the forest. Rick chases after Sophia, telling her to hide while he distracts the walkers. This has got to be the worst game of hide and seek I've ever seen. When Rick returns, Sophia is gone. The others search for her without any luck, but it's getting dark, so they decide to resume their search in the morning. Carol gave Rick an earful for leaving Sophia alone, and she's now doubting his leadership abilities. After a whole day unsuccessfully looking for Sophia, Rick, Shane, and Carol go hunting and spot a deer. Carl approaches it in awe when a gunshot rings out, killing the deer and hitting Carl as well. Like father, like son. In the next episode, we're introduced to an old man named Otis. He's the guy who accidentally shot Carl. Otis directs the group to a nearby farmhouse led by a veterinarian named Herschel Green, who can provide help. The others continue their search for Sophia, but no dice. Dale, meanwhile, thinks T-Dog has an infection from an injury he sustained in the previous episode, and they begin looking for antibiotics. Luckily, Daryl has a bag of painkillers and antibiotics with him because, of course, he does. Herschel is able to stabilize Carl, but tells Rick that his son will need a major surgery if he's going to save his life. Shane volunteers to search the nearby FEMA shelter for the necessary supplies.
It's too late to take that back.
Like, honestly, why does everything, literally everything, that comes out of this guy's mouth sound super untrustworthy? When Otis and Shane arrive at the FEMA shelter and retrieve the supplies, they're spotted by walkers and are forced to barricade themselves inside. Damn. The next episode begins with a flash forward with Shane giving himself a shower and a haircut, so he definitely got out at some point. But for now, Herschel is telling Lori and Rick that he's probably going to have to attempt surgery without the supplies Shane and Otis were supposed to get. Meanwhile, Daryl and Andrea keep searching for Sophia. Daryl is hopeful about their chances, but Andrea is not.
Hell, I was younger than her and I got lost.
Sure, but did you have to outrun a bunch of zombies, Daryl? While that's going on, Carl is going in and out of consciousness, having seizures. Lori questions if they should end his suffering, but Rick insists on attempting the surgery. Meanwhile, Shane and Otis are struggling to escape from the high school that they are trapped in. And to top that off, they both have injured their legs. Oh, and to top that off, they're running low on ammo too. Shane shoots poor Otis in the leg, leaving him as bait for the walkers, while he escapes by himself. Honestly, what is this asshole's problem? Shane then soon returns to the farmhouse, telling the gang that Otis sacrificed himself to save Carl. He then shaves his head in order to prevent anyone from seeing the bald spot from where Otis tore his hair out in their scuffle. What a loser. In the next episode, Carl is recovering from the operation, and when he wakes up, the first thing he does is ask about Sophia, which is just heartbreaking. Rick and Lori lie to him, saying she's fine and tell him to rest. Soon after, the others in the group make it there as well, and a funeral for Otis is held. Asshole Shane is asked about Otis's final moments, and the bastard blatantly lies to Otis's widow. Well, after that, it's day 3 of the search for Sophia, and Daryl ventures out to look for her on his own. He doesn't find her, but finds a flower called a Cherokee rose, which is a Native American symbol for God's protection over children. Well, that's cute. He then gives the rose to Carol. Meanwhile, Herschel's daughter Maggie invites Glenn on a pharmacy run before they leave, and Lori asks Glenn to grab her a pregnancy test. Uh-oh. While they're at the pharmacy, Glenn finds a box of condoms, and him and Maggie have a little fun time, little oingo boingo fun time. We then see Lori taking the pregnancy test that night, and it turns out she is pregnant, and something tells me it's not Rick's. The asshole could possibly be the dad of this child. On to episode 5 of the season. Another day, another search for Sophia. Meanwhile, Herschel doesn't love how comfortable the group is on his farm, and he wants them to leave sooner rather than later. I guess our gang has overstayed their welcome. Later, Daryl comes across Sophia's doll in a riverbed. He follows the river, but his horse gets spooked by a snake and he's thrown off. When he lands, Daryl is impaled by one of his own crossbow bolts. He soon passes out and hallucinates Merle, who provides some brotherly advice.
You go back there and shoot your pal Rick in the face for me.
To be fair, Merle, they did try to come back for you. Daryl then makes it back to the farm just in time for dinner, and Maggie passes Glenn a note asking when they can have some fun time again. Glenn writes back, telling her to meet him in the barn, but what Glenn finds there is not sexy at all. I would choose a different relations place if I were them, but that's just me. In the next episode, Maggie begs Glenn to keep the walkers a secret. She doesn't want to out their little romance. They then head back to the pharmacy on Lori's request to get her some morning after pills. Maggie gets attacked by a walker, but Glenn kills it before she can get bit. Talk about a romantic second date. Following that incident, Maggie is pretty shook up and confronts Lori about almost being killed on this ridiculous shopping trip. She tells Glenn that the others were basically using him as walker bait. Kind of harsh. Later, Shane finds a lead on Sophia and brings Andrea to investigate, but they're attacked by a horde of walkers. They kill off some of them and escape before deciding to have some car relations. I guess it's as good a time as any. Meanwhile, Lori takes the pills before having second thoughts and throwing them up. Rick finds the abortion pills and confronts Lori, and she tells him about Shane, but Rick already knew. On to episode 7 of this season. Glenn decides to tell the others about the barn full of walkers, and they are none too pleased. Rick confronts Herschel, who says that the walkers are still people and could be cured. Herschel says that if he and a group are going to stay on his farm, they have to treat the zombies as people. Later, he shows Rick how to snare and lead walkers. Oh, that's great. Meanwhile, Maggie isn't happy that Glenn told the others about the barn, but she still has feelings for him and doesn't stop her from getting some quick revenge, though. Hey, at least we know they've got showers. Later, Rick and Shane are arguing when Rick blurts out that Lori is pregnant. Shane is shocked, but congratulates him. Later, he confronts Lori, though, believing himself to be the father, but she denies it. Shane then gets really mad and increasingly erratic. What else is new? When he sees Herschel and Rick return with snared walkers, Shane screams that they aren't people before shooting at them. Calm down, Shane. Maybe she's wearing a bulletproof vest. He then goes further with his man man-child BS and bursts open the barn, taking out the other walkers one by one, but one of them turns out to be a Sophia. Yikes. As Sophia approached them, the others are too shocked to do anything, so Rick steps forward and puts her down, finally ending their search. In the next episode, Herschel's younger daughter, Beth, is left catatonic after watching the brutal death of her undead zombie mother. The group buries the bodies of Sophia as well as Herschel's wife and stepson and hold a memorial service. Carol refuses to attend, pulling up the Cherokee roses that she sees in the woods, all while Andrea and T-Dog throw the rest of the bodies in a truck so that they can burn them. Looks like these guys might need another hand. Suddenly, we find out that Herschel has disappeared, and his family believes that he may have started drinking again, as he's a recovering alcoholic. So Rick and Glenn travel to town to look for him. Meanwhile, Dale talks to Lori about Shane. He's worried that Shane intentionally killed Otis and might hurt someone else. This old dude is speaking facts. Lori then goes into town to find Rick, but her car hits a walker and is flipped over. Uh-oh. As that happens, Rick and Glenn find Herschel in a tavern, drinking alone. Rick persuades him to return home, but on their way out, they're stopped by two men who say they need a safe haven and ask where the farm is. Rick thinks they're acting pretty suspicious, especially after one of them threatens to shoot him. One of these men reaches for a gun and forces Rick to shoot and kill them both in self-defense. Jeez, that's brutal. In the next episode of the season, Lori is trapped in her crashed car when a walker busts through the window and tries to eat her. Wow, it sure looks pretty hungry. Maybe get him a Snickers. Shane tracks Lori down after she takes down a couple of walkers. He then tells her that Rick has returned to the farm in order to get Lori to leave with him. She's pretty ticked when she finds out Shane was lying, and Shane tells her that he was worried about the baby, which he believes to be his. Back at the tavern, Rick, Herschel, and Glenn are about to leave when a three-man search party arrives. Rick tries to tell them that he killed those two dudes in self-defense, but a shootout happens anyway. Rick and the others escape out the back, but the gunfire attracts walkers, who kill and straight up devour one of the men in the search party. Yikes. Of the two left, one literally drives away, leaving behind the other dude called Randall. Ever the nice guy, Rick saves Randall and wants to bring him back to the farm to be treated. The group then makes it back to the farm, safe and sound. Dang, Maggie, hugging Glenn before your grieving dad? It's pretty dang harsh. Later that night, Glenn is having none of that lover girl energy from Maggie, and he tells her to back off, saying that she made him distracted during the shootout. Okay. Meanwhile, Lori tells Rick about what Dale said regarding Shane intentionally killing Otis. She's worried that he's dangerous and urges Rick to talk to him. In episode 10, Rick confronts Shane about killing Otis and making moves on his pregnant wife. The asshole apologizes, saying that since he had no way to save Rick in the hospital, taking care of Lori and Carl gave him a reason to live. I call bullcrap on that, but Rick sort of buys it though, and he seems like he forgives him. And the pair are then about to exile Randall, but things get interesting when he tells them that he went to school with Maggie and he knows Herschel too. Shane tries to shoot him anyway, but Rick tackles him, making him miss his shot. Well, it looks like their short-lived truce is over. They then get into a fist fight, which Rick wins, of course, all while Shane accidentally busts open a window to the school, releasing the walkers inside. Shane hides in a school bus while Rick saves Randall. He considers leaving Shane behind, but decides to give him a second chance, running over the walkers with the car. Such a hero. As that happens, Beth regains consciousness at the farmhouse, but she looks severely depressed and wants to kill herself. Jeez Louise. Andrea tells Lori that Beth should be allowed to kill herself if she so pleases. But Lori disagrees, and she and Maggie try to convince her to stay alive. Andrea talks to Beth, saying the choice is hers, and Beth slices open her wrist, but changes her mind and decides to live. In the next episode, Daryl tortures Randall and learns that he's from a large group of dangerous, violent men. Both Rick and Shane now agree that he must be killed for their own protection. Dale tries to convince them otherwise, trying to appeal to their humanity, and he also brings in Rick's dignity as a father into question.
The message that you're giving him. Shoot first, think later?
He's got you there, Rick. Carl, meanwhile, gets restless and decides to go on a field trip of his own. He observes Randall in the barn, and Randall begs for his life, promising to keep him and his parents safe. Uh-oh. Luckily, Shane finds Carl and scolds him. As that happens, Carl steals a gun and wanders into the swamp. He finds a walker and almost shoots it, but gets too scared and runs off. Later that night, Dale pleads his case to the others, but they aren't convinced, and he's outvoted. He then goes for a walk in the woods to cool off. Rick is about to execute Randall when Carl tells his dad to do it. And just like that, Rick's now horrified by his son's certainty and can't bring himself to pull the trigger. he decides to keep Randall in custody instead. On the other side of things, Dale is walking outside when he's attacked by a walker. Herschel says that his wounds are too severe and he can't be saved, so Daryl shoots Dale, ending his suffering. Damn. In episode 12 of season 2, Carl is guilt-ridden by Dale's death. He thinks he's responsible and confides in Shane, who comforts him, telling him that it's important to protect himself. Lori confides in Shane as well, thanking him for keeping her and her son safe while Rick was in the hospital. I'm not liking this at all. Shane then tells Rick about Carl's confession, and Rick comforts Carl as well, encouraging him to keep the gun for his own protection. They grow up so fast. Later, Shane sneaks into the barn and busts out Randall before heading into the woods with him. Shane then breaks his neck, which kills him, and then bashes his own head into the tree. Jeez. Back at the camp, he tells the others that Randall escaped into the woods and smashed his face in. Still, the old jig is up when Daryl and Glenn find Randall reanimated as a walker, and after they kill him, they're confused, seeing that he doesn't have any bite marks. Later, Shane takes Rick out into the woods, and Rick determines that this was a ruse to get him alone into the field to kill him, so Rick stabs Shane before he can do so. Damn, that's cold-blooded. Then, at the right freaking moment, Carl finds his father standing over Shane's body and points his gun at him. Shane reanimates, and Carl takes a shot. Damn right. Unfortunately, though, the gunshot is heard by a massive horde of walkers, who are now approaching the farm. Time for the Season 2 finale. Back at the farmhouse, Glenn and Daryl head back to the group, telling them that Randall became a walker without being bit. Lori wants them to search for Rick and Shane, but the horde approaches, and they are forced to start arming themselves. As that goes on, Rick and Carl have decided to hide in a barn. They lure a bunch of walkers inside before setting the barn on fire and escaping. Yes. Kill them. Kill them all with fire. The group quickly realizes that they're outnumbered and are forced to evacuate. But as this happens, Andrea is separated from the others and presumed dead, but she escapes. Oh, and she also finds a mysterious hooded figure with a katana. The rest of the group meets back up on the highway. Glenn confesses his love for Maggie after the close call they all had, and Daryl tells the others that Shane killed Randall, prompting more questions. How did he turn into a zombie then? Well, it's at that moment that Rick reveals that Dr. Jenner told him at the CDC that everyone is infected and will remain as a zombie regardless of how they die. Great! The others are mad at Rick for keeping this a secret, and in frustration of that, Rick blurts out that he never asked to be in charge of that. He also had to kill Shane in order to protect them. He tells them to leave if they want to, but no one says anything.
This isn't a democracy anymore.
Oh, sure, Rick, that'll sway him to your side. And now, let's kick off Season 3. It's been about 8 months since Rick killed Shane and the group left the Green Farm. The world has only become more and more brutal. They find a prison nearby and clear out the walkers up front so they can make it their new shelter. Lori and Rick's relationship is on the rocks. Probably doesn't help that the baby is due any day now. Andrea, meanwhile, is super sick and being cared for by Michonne, the girl she encountered at the end of Season 2. Definitely could have worse people looking out for you. The gang breaks into the prison. Inside, they find some more walkers, and Herschel is bitten in the calf. Uh-oh. Rick amputates his leg with a hatchet to hopefully stop the infection from spreading. They then clear out the rest of the walkers and find some new friends. Actually, something tells me they aren't going to be that friendly. Kicking off the next episode, Rick and the others have encountered 5 living prisoners who have been holed up since the outbreak began. Great! Rick, like any colonizer worth his salt, tells them that because they killed the walkers, they should be able to have the prison all to themselves. But the leader of the prisoners, Tomas, obviously disagrees. Still, they have to come to a compromise.
If I so much as even catch a whiff of your scent, I will kill you.
Dictatorship? More like a Rick-tatorship, am I right? Anyway, Rick is trying to teach the convicts how to safely kill walkers, but Tomas is not a huge fan of following orders, and the group is forced to deal with a horde all at once. Tomas tries to assassinate Rick during the fight because the dude is straight up jealous of his alphaness, but it all goes south for him because soon after, Rick stabs him in the head with a machete. Yikes! But Rick being Rick, he spares the surviving convicts, letting them stay in a separate cell block. Later, Carol and Lori successfully treat Herschel, who wakes up as a human. Looks like Rick's impromptu surgery was just what he needed. In the next episode, Andrea and Michonne are investigating a helicopter crash when another group of survivors comes in and captures them. The girls are then taken to Woodbury, a well-supplied and protected town, holding about 70 survivors. You remember Merle from Season 1? Yeah, that guy now has become the right-hand man, or bayonet hand man, to the governor, the leader of the town. What a promotion! Andrea is charmed by the governor and wants to stay in the town, but Michonne isn't so sure. and I'm kinda with her. Later, the governor tracks the helicopter crew to a camp of soldiers and ambushes them. He steals their weapons and their heads as well, which he collects and keeps in tanks in his room. And you thought collecting dolls was creepy. On to the next episode. Michonne is really suspicious of the governor and tries to convince Andrea to leave, but she isn't interested. Jeez. As this happens, Andrea gives Merle some information on the Green Farmstead as he tries to track down his brother Daryl. Meanwhile, at the prison, walkers swarm the courtyard. T-Dog gets bit in the shoulder before sacrificing himself to save Carol by barreling through a walker horde to help her escape, but it looks like she also dies in the process. At least you died a hero, T-Dog. Rick blames the prisoners, Axel and Oscar, but it was actually this dude called Andrew who brought a deer carcass into the prison gates to attract the walkers. Oscar kills him for his recklessness, and Axel and Oscar then help the others fight off the walkers. Later, Lori's baby decides that she wants to come out right now, and Lori starts having contractions. Maggie is forced to perform a fatal C-section to deliver the baby, and Carl is forced to shoot his mother in the head so she doesn't reanimate. Damn, that's kinda cold. In the next episode, Rick is traumatized and devastated at the loss of Lori. Daryl and Maggie leave to find the infant formula and baby supplies, while Rick, handles things inside the prison. Well, Rick, if you're gonna be paralyzed by grief, you might as well look really awesome while doing it. Since Rick's MIA, Carl thinks of names for his little sister. Meanwhile, the town of Woodbury is having a party, and we find out that the governor is holding a walker captive in his house. It's his young daughter, Penny. Guess that's better than a head collection, but this guy is a full-on weirdo. Michonne thinks so too, and sneaks into the house to investigate, but gets caught. The governor exiles her, but Andrea still wants to stay. After all this, why? Why, Andrea? Why would you want to stay? That night, Merle and this dude called Martinez engage in a cage match while surrounded by chained walkers. Andrea thinks this is barbaric, but the governor says it's to help the citizens feel less afraid. Hey, it's kind of like real-life wrestling. Meanwhile, Rick has totally lost it and starts answering phone calls in the prison office. Phone lines are dead, buddy. Kind of like your wife, Lori. Okay, dead wife joke came out of left field. Sheesh. In episode 6 of season 3, Rick is really going nuts, but instead of slaughtering a bunch of walkers, he hallucinates talking to his friends who have died through the telephone. After a call from Lori, he comes to his senses and rejoins the group, finally seeing his newborn daughter. Daryl, meanwhile, finds Carol, who isn't dead after all. Meanwhile, Andrea and the governor have gotten really close, so they start doing the deed. And Meryl gets tasked with finding and killing Michonne. Yeah, that letting her go stuff was just to keep appearances. After a few scuffles, both Meryl and Michonne arrive at the mall, where Glenn and Maggie are gathering more baby supplies. They're captured by Merle, who wants to find his brother. Man, Maggie and Glenn always have the worst shopping trips. Still, Michonne remains hidden, and after all the others leave, she gathers the supplies and makes her way to the prison. Back at Woodbury, Merle lies, saying he killed Michonne, all while Glenn and Maggie are brought into separate cells, to be tortured and interrogated for the location of the prison. The next episode begins with Merle torturing Glenn for information. The governor, meanwhile, is torturing Maggie, threatening to SA her. What an asshole. Still, Maggie refuses to speak until the douchebag threatens to kill Glenn in front of her. Maggie then tells them all about the prison, leaving the governor worried about Rick's group being a potential threat. It'd also be troublesome for him if Merle switched sides here, since Merle's brother Daryl is a part of that threat. At the prison, Michonne is brought inside by Rick and Carl, but they take away her katana, which is fair. Since she was carrying baby formula, they figure that Michonne knows about the baby, raising their suspicions. Jeez, Rick. A thank you would be nice. Michonne tells them what she saw happen to Glenn and Maggie and offers to lead them to Woodbury to rescue them. As they prepare to leave, Carl and Rick settle on the name Judith for the baby. I like it. In the mid-season finale of season 3, Rick, Michonne, and the others burst into the town of Woodbury to rescue Glenn and Maggie. While they're gone, a group of survivors led by siblings, Therese and Sasha, enter the prison through the fence, but they're soon found by Carl, who locks them away for safekeeping. Honestly, they are so lucky that Rick and Daryl are not there. Meanwhile, Rick and the others launch their ambush, saving Glenn and Maggie before they can be executed. The governor keeps Andrea away because, of course, he can't have her switching sides. Michonne slips away out of sight, and Glenn tells Daryl that Merle is in this town, and then Daryl insists on finding his brother.
He's my brother. He ain't gonna try. What he did, but we gotta get out of here now.
Yeah, buddy, I don't think this is a good time to plan a family reunion. Then we see Rick and his rescue team scale the wall, successfully escaping Woodbury. But Well, Daryl gets captured. Michonne, meanwhile, breaks into the governor's house and sees his creepy room full of heads. Super yikes. The governor finds Michonne and begs her not to kill Penny, which she does anyway, before stabbing him in the eye with a glass shard. Cool as hell and super badass. After this side quest, Michonne meets back up with Rick and the gang, who question if she's still useful. In the aftermath, the governor tells the town that this was a terrorist attack and Merle is to blame. In the next episode, Daryl and Merle are forced to fight for the entertainment of the rest of the town. While they wrestle, Merle tells his brother to follow his lead so they can escape. Suddenly, Rick and Maggie show up, taking shots at walkers before throwing up a smoke bomb into the crowd, helping Merle and Daryl escape. Yeah, the governor does not look too happy about this. Looks like everyone's going to be sleeping with one eye open tonight. Rick refuses to let Merle come back to the prison, making Daryl not want to come back either. Rick seems to kind of be in a "this is my treehouse and you can't play with us" mood, because he tells Michonne she's gonna have to leave as well. Why the hell her? Meanwhile, Woodbury is in a panic after the shootout. Several of the residents want to leave, but the governor refuses to open the gates or even leave his apartment. Some leader this guy is. When the gang gets back to the prison, Rick sees visions of Lori, and now he doesn't want Therese and Sasha's group to hang around either. Yeah, Lori's death has given him all kind of trust issues. Next up is episode 10 of season 3. Rick is still having hallucinations of Lori, so he's decided to take a little time out in the woods, hoping to find her. Meanwhile, Daryl and Merle are on their own solo survival adventure.
You hear that?
Yeah.
Off to a great start. Daryl stops to rescue a family with a newborn from walkers, but Merle would rather be racist and rob them. How are these two brothers? This leads to an argument between them about their childhoods, and Daryl heads back to the prison without Merle. Then we see that Glenn has decided to take the reins as a group leader since no one else is gonna do it. He tells the others to begin fortifying the prison, but Herschel thinks they should flee. Herschel also doesn't think that Glenn is cut out for the job of leader and tries to convince Rick to come back, but Rick's still gone a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
We need you now more than ever.
Yeah, well, I didn't see you volunteering, Herschel. Later, the douchebag governor and his men fire upon the prison and ram a bread truck filled with walkers right through the gates. Credit where credit is due, that was a pretty smart idea to be honest. Believing his work there is done, the governor retreats, but Daryl and Merle arrive just in time to save Rick. In the next episode, the group is struggling to recover from the governor's attack, and by the way Merle tells it, things are about to get way worse.
That truck through the fence thing? That's just him ringing the doorbell.
Well, hopefully it'll be fine. Herschel still thinks that they should flee, but Rick, Glenn, and Merle disagree. Prison is just too cozy. Meanwhile, in Woodbury, the governor is preparing his people for total war. They're also joined by Tyrese's group, who tell them about their bad encounter with Rick. Technically, he wasn't screaming at you, man. It just hallucination of his dead wife. I don't know if that helps at all, but it should. As that happens, Andrea tries to sneak out to broker a peace deal, but everyone is suspicious of her motives. When she makes it, Rick asks her to help them launch a surprise attack on the douchebag governor, and Carol privately asks her to assassinate her so-called boyfriend. Andrea isn't interested in either solution, and Michonne tells Andrea that the governor isn't likely to let anyone leave, or live, for that matter, if they aren't under his control. That night, Andrea holds a knife to the governor's throat, but she can't bring herself to go through with it. Up next is episode 12 of season 3. Rick, Carl, and Michonne are going on a field trip to Rick's home turf to get weapons and prepare for the attack. On the trip, Carl tells his dad that he isn't too sure about their new katana-wielding friend. To be fair, she's really good and really scary with that katana. When they reach the town, they run into Rick's day one apocalypse buddy, Morgan, who we haven't seen since episode 1. Wow, I really thought that guy was dead. Morgan provides the trio with guns and ammo, and Carl and Michonne bond as they look for a crib and baby supplies, and find a picture of his mother for baby Judith. Kid, you may be tough, but there's no way you can carry a whole crib by yourself. As they leave, Rick invites Morgan to come to the prison, but Morgan likes flying solo, and Carl tells his dad that he's good with Michonne after all. In episode 13, Andrea arranges a meeting between Rick and the governor to hopefully stop everyone from killing each other. Things are going pretty smoothly, and the men feel bad over the deaths of their loved ones. The governor tells Rick that he has two choices: hand over Michonne, or he'll kill their whole group. Rick isn't really in a position to negotiate, seeing as they're way outnumbered, but still, the governor gives him 2 days to decide, and Rick leaves with the others. What Rick doesn't know yet is the governor doesn't care what he decides. He's already instructed his army to kill them all, save for Michonne. Okay, that was Rude. The next episode begins with the governor making an extra special gift for his friend Michonne, and by special gift, I mean a torture chamber. Milton gives Andrea a heads up that the governor plans to murder all of her friends, making her reconsider assassination plans. Milton says that the governor's second in command will do the same thing, so he tells her to go warn Rick and the others. Andrea reaches the prison, but Tyrese and Sasha informed the governor of her sudden change of plans. So, before Andrea can alert Rick, the governor grabs her and silences her before tossing her in his new torture chamber. Something tells me that this couple ain't gonna last. In this episode of Season 3, Rick has decided to hand over Michonne in hopes of preventing a war. In happier news, Maggie has agreed to marry Glenn. Aw, I hope they survive this so that they can actually get married. Rick, meanwhile, has a hallucination of Lori and now believes that handing Michonne over is a bad idea, but Merle is already left to deliver her to Woodbury in secret. Jeez. Seeing them missing, Daryl tracks them down on foot. On the way over, Merle has a change of heart and lets Michonne out of the car. He also sets off the car alarm to attract walkers and rolls the car forward to the meeting site. The governor's men are waiting to ambush the car, but they're distracted by the walkers, which leads to Merle sneaking behind them and killing them. Unfortunately, though, Merle is soon caught by the governor, who shoots him dead. Uh-oh. While that's happening, Rick comes clean to the group and resigns from his leadership role, reverting the group back to a democracy.
We choose to go. We choose to stay. We stick together.
You're about 24 hours too late with that speech, man. Meanwhile, Daryl finds Meryl's reanimated corpse and kills it while crying over his loss. It's actually so sad. And now for the Season 3 finale. The governor beats the crap out of Milton for burning all the infected a few episodes back, and then drags him into the torture room. He tells Milton that he can get back into his good graces by killing Andrea, but he won't do it. So the governor stabs the crap out of him, knowing that he'll reanimate and kill Andrea anyway. Talk about an offer Milton can't refuse. At the prison, Michonne thanks Rick for letting her stay, and Rick gives Carl the credit for it. Later, the army from Woodbury breaks in with the governor, but they're soon ambushed by Rick and the others. They retreat, and a young man from the group is caught on the outside by Herschel and Carl. Herschel gets him to surrender, and Carl takes the opportunity to shoot him, and then Carl lies about it. Carl, he was handing over his gun, man! Later, the governor catches up to his fleeing men and orders them to return to the prison. When they refuse, he shoots them all before driving off with his lieutenants. What an asshole. Rick, Daryl, and Michonne head to Woodbury to find the governor, but he isn't there. They find Andrea in the torture room, though, where she's been bit by Milton. Andrea wants to kill herself instead of turning, and Michonne stays with her while she does. Talk about a bad breakup. Later, Rick and the others return to the prison with Andrea's body and a school bus of former Woodbury residents. And it looks like that finally gets Rick to stop hallucinating. Rest in peace, dear Lori. And now, let's kick off Season 4. It's been a few months since Woodbury residents moved into the prison, and Rick has taken up a new hobby, gardening and raising pigs. The prison is running smoothly, with residents cooking, hunting, and patrolling the fence, and decisions are made by a council instead of just Rick. Beth even found herself a new boyfriend named Zach. Aw, young love in the apocalypse. We also see that Michonne has returned to the prison temporarily. She's been hunting down the governor and plans to continue her search. Carol, meanwhile, is secretly teaching the kids how to safely use weapons. Later, we see that Daryl and a few others are on a supply run to a grocery store when walkers start falling through the decaying ceiling. Ugh. And Beth's new guy, Zach, is bitten and killed in the process. Still, the others manage to escape, and we see that Beth takes the news okay. Well, at least she's maintained her sense of humor. That night, a teenager named Patrick has been super sick all day and collapses in the shower. He gets back up, but not as himself. As a frickin' walker? In the next episode, Patrick gets hungry and attacks some people in the cell block, forcing the group to kill the bitten. The survivors handle the infected and realize that Patrick doesn't have bite marks. Interesting. Meanwhile, Herschel takes a note of a sick pig called Violet and thinks it's a swine flu that's going around. The council decides to quarantine those who are exposed, but before anyone can get too comfortable, a horde of walkers arrives at the fence and nearly tears it down. The group also finds dead rats at the fence, suggesting somebody has been feeding them, causing these walkers to cluster nearby. Seeing this, Rick sacrifices the sick pigs to lure the walkers away from the prison. Well, someone wants bacon. That night, the bodies of Karen and David are found outside, killed and burnt due to their sickness, and no one knows who did it. What is happening here? On to episode 3 of season 4, people in the prison are still getting sick, and those sick people are still dying and turning into zombies. Great! Daryl and Michonne lead a group on a supply run to a nearby veterinary college in hopes of finding some medicine, and on their way there, they hear a voice on the radio directing people to a place called Sanctuary. As that's happening, Rick investigates the Karen and David crime scene and finds a bloody handprint smaller than his, probably a woman's. Meanwhile, Carol is taking a field trip well beyond the fence to clean up the water pipe. Rick sees her just in time to save her from walkers. That's why we use the buddy system, Carol, so situations like this don't happen. Later, Rick asks her if she was the one that killed Karen and David, and she admits to it before walking away in silence. In the next episode, Carol and Rick go on a supply run since Daryl's group hasn't returned yet. Carol defends her actions to Rick, saying she was just trying to stop the infection from spreading, and they then find a couple in a house and invite them to the prison, but they don't make it back, and they're presumably killed by walkers. Rick tells Carol that she won't be returning to the prison either, all because he plans to tell the others what she did to Karen and David.
Can you handle Tyrese?
I think that's kind of what he's worried about, Carol. In episode 5 of season 4, Rick returns alone. The others notice Carol's absence, but he only tells a few about what happened. Maggie agrees that it was the right thing to do. Later, we find out that several of the 6 survivors have succumbed to the disease and are reanimating as walkers. Lizzie does her part to fight them by acting as a traffic guard. These kids are next level. Lizzie trips and a walker jumps on her, but she's saved by a surprisingly nimble Herschel. The fence, which is still weak from earlier this season, gives way, forcing Carl and Rick to fight a huge horde. Meanwhile, Daryl's group returns from the hospital with the medicine just in time for Herschel to administer it to the remaining sick people, including Glenn, by the way, who was on the brink of death. Yikes. The next morning, an old friend is lurking outside the prison. Okay, friend might have been an overstatement. In the next episode, we find out what the heck the governor has been up to. His so-called henchmen, Martinez and Schumpert, bailed on him one night while he was sleeping, so he returned to Woodbury to burn the whole place down. Eventually, he comes across the Chamber family, consisting of David and his daughters, Tara, Lily, and Lily's daughter, Megan.
Been waiting for the National Guard since
this shit hit the fan.
Language.
Yeah, Tara, no swearing during the zombie apocalypse. There, the governor gives himself a new identity, calling himself Brian. He's about to leave when Lily asks him to retrieve oxygen tanks from a nearby nursing home, as her daddy David is dying of lung cancer. It's sad. The governor agrees, and the family warms up to him. The governor then also bonds with Megan. One night, David dies from his illness and reanimates, and the governor is forced to kill him. After they bury David, the governor burns a picture of his family before moving out of the apartment with the girls, and soon they find another group of survivors, led by none other than Martinez. Uh-oh. In the next episode, we're still hanging out with the governor. Martinez tells him that he wouldn't have saved him if it weren't for his adopted family. This dude thinks his old boss has changed. He even offers him a co-leadership role. Okay, geez, should not have done that. The next day, the governor kills another member of Martinez's group and throws the corpse into a lake. Then he once again crowns himself the king, or governor, and decides that he wants to take the prison for his newfound family. Old habits die hard, I guess. In the next episode, the governor has captured Herschel and Michonne and tells the others in his group that they need to take over the prison. Unsurprisingly, several of them are pretty weirded out by his impromptu kidnapping and murder plot, including his new girlfriend Lily. Jeez, this guy cannot function without a muse by his side. The governor arrives at the prison with a bang, literally, using Herschel and Michonne as leverage to get everyone to leave. Rick and Herschel suggest coexisting in the prison, but the governor is not interested in that.
Not after Andrea.
My guy, you killed Andrea! When Rick refuses to surrender, the governor decapitates Herschel, and gunfire breaks out. Lily arrives, having seen the whole thing, and she's holding Megan's body, who was bit by a walker, buried in the dirt. Jeez. The governor shoots her to prevent her from reanimating, and the militia infiltrates the prison, tearing down the fences in their tank. The inhabitants scatter, and some escape on a bus. And the governor almost strangles Rick, but Michonne impales him with her katana. Thank goodness. Later, Rick escapes with Carl, and the prison is overrun by walkers. And to top it all off, as he lay dying, Lily shoots the governor, finally killing him. After that bummer of an episode, we're kicking off episode 9. The survivors have left the prison, and Michonne is trying to figure out where some of them went. She stabs Herschel's reanimated head to put him out of his misery, before disarming a few walkers to use as protection. Michonne then takes shelter in a car overnight, and has a nightmare about her life before the apocalypse with her boyfriend Mike, along with her young son. Later, we see her following footprints, which turn out to be Carl and Rick's. We then see that Carl and Rick have holed up in an abandoned house. Rick is seriously injured and falls asleep, staying unconscious through till the morning. So Carl has to take down 3 walkers by himself. When he gets back, his dad is still asleep, so Carl takes the moment to blow off some steam. Later that night, Carl thinks that Rick is reanimating and almost shoots him. When he can't do it, he cries to his father, admitting that he's scared. Oh. The next morning, Rick becomes conscious again and he apologizes to his son and tells him that he knows he's a man now. Okay. Soon after, Michonne arrives and sees Carl and Rick through a window. Well, she looks happy. The episode then ends with the men hearing a knock on the door and Rick looks through the peephole. In this episode, we see what the others are up to. Daryl and Beth escape together. They're sitting at a campfire and Beth is optimistic that they aren't the only survivors. She insists that they search for their friends. Tyrese has taken Lizzie and a little girl called Micah under his wing, along with baby Judith. After a rough night and a bad walker encounter, they run into Carol. Yeah, Rick never got the chance to tell Tyrese what she did to his girlfriend, Karen. Oops. Later, we see a stranger being bit by one of the walkers, and before he dies, he tells them about a sanctuary up the tracks. Interesting. Meanwhile, we see that Maggie is with Sasha and her boyfriend Bob, and they find the bus from the prison, but the survivors inside are all dead, now reanimated as walkers. Alright, but where the hell is Glenn? Well, it turns out Glenn was knocked unconscious at the prison. After putting on some riot gear, he finds Tara hiding behind a fence, and they escape together, meeting 3 new friends named Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita. This show just keeps introducing characters. It's kind of getting hard to remember. In episode 11 of season 4, Carl and Michonne are having breakfast talking about the merits of soy milk, taste-wise.
I would rather have Judas formula.
Way to kill the vibe, Carl. While Rick recovers from his injuries, Michonne and Carl go on a supply run, where Michonne opens up about the son she lost at the beginning of the apocalypse. Sad stuff. Meanwhile, Glenn and Tara are in the back of the military truck, where Abraham says that he and Rosita are on a mission to bring Eugene to Washington, D.C., so he can stop the Walker outbreak. Glenn is not even remotely interested in this side quest, as he'd rather find Maggie, but when Glenn and Abraham argue, they're stopped by some walkers. Well, shit. Eugene accidentally shoots up the gas tank in their truck, so they're kinda stuck now, and now they've gotta find a new car. As that's happening, Rick is trying to enjoy a nice day of reading when he's woken up by scavengers entering the house. He manages to kill one and sneak out, escaping with Michonne and Carl. They then see a sign near the railroad tracks advertising a sanctuary for all. In the next episode, we catch up with Beth and Daryl. Beth wants to try alcohol for the first time, understandable given the circumstances, and Daryl takes her to a cabin he cleared out previously with Michonne. He brings out some moonshine and the two of them get hammered. Daryl is a pretty mean drunk and ends up going off about his rough childhood.
Never eaten frozen yogurt. Never had a pet pony. Never got nothing from Santa Claus.
Okay, Daryl, you're kind of taking the sport out of never have I ever. They then also get into an annoying shouting match before Daryl breaks down about those they've lost. And that night, Daryl and Beth burn the cabin down as a way of leaving their past behind them. In the next episode, Maggie, Sasha, and Bob are also following signs to this mysterious sanctuary known as Terminus. Maggie leaves blood-written notes for Glenn along the way, hoping that they can meet there. Elsewhere, Daryl is teaching Beth how to use his crossbow. She gets her foot caught in an animal trap, so Daryl gives her a piggyback ride so they can keep going. They then hole up in a church to rest, but it's invaded by walkers. Daryl gives Beth some time to escape, but she gets freaking abducted, dude. Daryl follows her, but he's soon stopped by a group of men with crossbows, and it looks like it's the same guys that interrupted Rick.
Why hurt yourself when you can hurt other people?
Yeah, I don't love that as an introduction. As this episode ends, Glenn sees the signs pointing to Terminus and heads that way as well. In the next episode, Tyrese, Carol, Lizzie, and Micah continue their journey to Terminus. Man, this place must be like Disneyland or something. They hole up in an abandoned house after clearing out a few walkers, which Lizzie appears to be growing a little too fond of. Hey, I bet I know who was feeding mice to the walkers at the prison. Later, Carol and Tyrese leave the girls to go hunt, and when they come back, they find that Lizzie has stabbed Micah with a knife and is about to kill Judith too, wanting them to come back as walkers. Creepy as hell. The adults in the room then decide that Lizzie is too dangerous to have around other people, and Carol shoots her the next morning before burying the sisters. Yikes. Soon after, Carol also fesses up about Karen and David to Tyrese. With that out of the way, Tyrese, Carol, and Judith continue to Terminus. At the top of the next episode, Rick, Carol, and Michonne are headed towards Terminus along the tracks. Glenn's group is headed that way as well when they're reunited with Maggie, Sasha, and Bob. Take that, Abraham, you thought she was dead. Anyway, seeing the reunion, Abraham and the others agree to travel with the merged group to Terminus before heading to DC. Daryl, meanwhile, is traveling with Joe's crossbow-wielding group known as the Claimers, and it looks like they're heading to Terminus as well, but only because they're following Rick's trail to kill him. Glenn, Maggie, Sasha, and the others make it to Terminus and are welcomed with open arms by a woman named Mary. I don't know about you, but I'm getting super bad energy from this, whole thing. In the season 4 finale, Rick, Carl, and Michonne are still making their way to Terminus when they're ambushed by Joel, Daryl, and the Claimers. Daryl tries to convince his new group not to murder his old friends, and Joe says he's willing to be reasonable.
We're gonna beat Daryl to death. Then we'll have the girl. Then the boy. Then I'm gonna shoot you, and then we'll be square.
Damn, that's not very reasonable at all. Rick, Daryl, and Michonne take down the others, and Rick literally rips Joe's throat out with his teeth. Guess he learned a thing or two from all those walkers. Once that's over with, Rick, Michonne, Carl, and Daryl continue to Terminus. Rick doesn't have a great feeling about this place either, and has his gang hide their weapons before heading in. They're welcomed by brothers Gareth and Alex, but the mood changes when Rick sees the belongings of their friends being used by several of the townsfolk, and a shootout ensues. Rick and the others are outnumbered and locked in a boxcar, where the others are trapped as well. Looks like the gang is getting back together. To kick off Season 5, we learn a little bit more about the law and order system running the so-called Sanctuary of Terminus. Some sanctuary, I guess if you're cool with cannibalism? Tyrese, Carol, and Judith are making their way to Terminus in hopes of finding their friends, unaware of the dining habits of the residents. Hopefully they aren't big fans of veal. The trio capture a Terminus outpost, and Tyrese stays on baby duty while Carol uses a flaming herd of walkers to rescue her friends. Rick and the others are about to be slaughtered when they hear a huge explosion. Gareth isn't in the mood for a barbecue and leaves to figure out what's going on, enabling Rick to escape with his friends and kill their captors. Not so fun when you're the one whose dinner, is it, lady? Rick's crew makes it out, leaving the compound up in flames. They run into Carol, and Carl and Rick get to see Judith again. On to the next episode. Rick and the others are getting as far away from cannibalistic Terminus as possible when they rescue a certain Father Gabriel from a horde of walkers. Gabriel then takes the gang back to his church, where he's been living alone since the apocalypse broke out. Rick leads a supply run and insists that Gabriel comes with them. But when they return, Carl sees a very suspicious message on the back of the church. Something tells me that they weren't referring to Gabriel's sermons here. As the episode ends, Rick and the others agree to continue the journey to Washington, D.C. in hopes of making a cure. All while Carol and Daryl break off from the group to search for Beth. The next episode begins late that same night. Bob is captured by Terminus survivors who amputate his leg and eat it. Yeesh. Bob starts laughing hysterically. Meanwhile, Rick and Sasha question what Gabriel's deal is, and he's forced to admit that he locked his congregation out of the church when the apocalypse broke out. Meanwhile, Gareth's cannibal group drops Bob outside of the church before ambushing Rick and the gang. However, our heroes get their revenge on the former Terminus residents and give Bob a proper send-off the next morning. After that, Maggie, Glenn, and Tara join the DC crew, and Rick and the others are promising to follow once they get Carol and Daryl. In episode 4, season 5, we finally see Beth again as she wakes up in a hospital. Weird. She's soon greeted by Officer Don Lerner, who tells her that since they saved her life, she has to provide the hospital with free labor to repay her debt. Tisk tisk. We then find out that Don's hospital policy states that they only take those weak enough to control, and no one is allowed to actually leave the hospital. Don defends her choices, staying until they're rescued. They all have to make hard choices.
No one's coming.
You tell her, Beth. Next, Beth befriends an inmate named Noah, who confides in her his plans to escape. Noah makes it out, but Beth gets caught in the parking lot. Soon, Carol is wheeled into the hospital. Thank goodness. In the next episode, we follow Abraham, Glenn, Maggie, and the others on their journey to save the world, all while Eugene is being really cagey about his scientific knowledge. Suddenly, the bus derailed and the gang is swarmed by walkers. They kill the walkers, and Eugene suggests turning back to the church, but the others would rather stop the downfall of humanity. That night, Eugene confides in Tara, saying that he sabotaged the bus, but he won't tell her why. The gang continues their journey, and Abraham wants to cross through an infested ranch, but the others refuse, so Abraham drags Eugene forward. This leads to Eugene confessing that he's not a scientist after all, just a really good liar. Yikes. In this next episode, let's see what Carol and Daryl have been getting up to. So they're in pursuit of Beth, following a car with a white cross on the back, eventually tracking it to the hospital. While scouting it out, they meet Noah, who steals their supplies and weapons.
Sorry about this.
Hey, at least he apologized. While searching a van for supplies, Carol and Daryl are pushed off the edge of the overpass, and Carol suffers a shoulder injury. They then run into Noah again and save him from walkers, and they realize they're all trying to find and rescue Beth. so they decide to become friends. Before they can reach their destination, Carol is struck by a police car, likely on purpose, and brought in on a stretcher. Meanwhile, Noah and Daryl commandeer a truck and return to the church to enlist Rick and the others for their rescue mission. In episode 7 of season 5, Daryl and Noah give Rick and the others the scoop on Carol and Beth. Michonne, Carl, Gabriel, and Judith stay behind. Meanwhile, Glenn and Maggie's group debates what to do next, as Eugene is still unconscious and they aren't saving the world anytime soon. Eventually, all of them settle on going back to the church. At the hospital, Dawn instructs one of her officers to take Carol off life support, but Beth convinces Dr. Edwards otherwise. Rick and the others capture a few cops in hopes of exchanging prisoners. Next up is the mid-season finale of season 5. Gabriel accidentally leads a huge group of walkers to the church, but the group there manages to escape and join back up with Abraham and the others. The prisoner exchange goes smoothly until Dawn offers a condition at the last second. Dawn says she'll trade one Carol and one Beth in exchange for one Noah. At first, Rick's like, go fish, but Noah sacrifices himself to prevent bloodshed, all while Dawn taunts Beth for having got what she wanted. So much for preventing bloodshed. Beth is killed instantly, and an enraged Daryl kills Dawn. The others stand down, and Noah opts to join Rick's group. Outside, Maggie mourns the loss of her sister. But on the bright side, Morgan's back. To honor Beth's death, the now united group helps Noah complete his journey to Virginia. That's what Beth would have wanted. 530 miles later, they reach Richmond, only to find it overrun with walkers. Great. Guess they'll now need a plan B. Noah is distraught, but Tyrese comforts him while the others scout for supplies. There's always a reason to keep pushing forward. Later, Noah searches through his old home, seeing the dead bodies of his family. While distracted by pictures, Tyrese is bitten by Noah's reanimated brother. Yikes! Rick and Michonne hear Noah's screams and rush to investigate, finding Tyrese bitten. Michonne amputates his arm, but he cannot be saved, so the survivors hold a funeral. On to the next episode. The survivors' van runs out of gas, forcing them to continue on foot in the general direction of DC, since they aren't really sure where else to go. They're all exhausted, depressed, and still have to fight off walkers, so just think of that next time you don't feel like going to work. Soon, the group is out of food and water and are questioning their ability to survive. Luckily though, they find a not at all suspicious gift in the middle of the road. In this world, that kind of thing is usually not a good sign. Rick tells the others to not drink the water, and it soon begins raining. Thank goodness. Rick then ponders the reality of growing up in this world, recalling a story from his grandfather, who fought in World War II, who said he only survived by convincing himself he was already a dead man.
That we are the walking dead.
Hey, that's the title of the show. They said the title. It's the title of the show. The next morning, the group is approached by a man named Aaron, who asks for Rick by name, calling himself a friend. Creepy. In the next episode, the gang heads off with Aaron to check out this so-called community that he's been yapping about. Given what they've been through since leaving the prison, everyone's understandably nervous. Rick insists on taking an uncleared back road there, despite it not being cleared, as he doesn't want to be ambushed on the way. But this was a bad idea, because Glenn ends up driving into a horde of walkers in the dark, and they have to take shelter for the night. Aaron is relieved that the group saved his boyfriend, Eric, and tells him that the community is located in Alexandria, Virginia. Rick is still distrustful, but is convinced to stay when they reach the outside walls. Kids playing seems like an okay sign. In the next episode, Rick and the others meet the community leader, Deanna. She tells them that Alexandria was a planned community and Northern Virginia was mostly evacuated when the outbreak hit. Her husband, Reg, was an architect and able to build walls to prevent people from getting in, though there are very few around. Rick tells her they shouldn't be so accepting to strangers, as people are always looking to exploit weaknesses. Carol might even be one of them. The group, while probably thrilled to have running water and haircuts, is not impressed with the survival skills of the Alexandria residents. Glenn goes on a supply run with this dude called Aiden and some of the others. Aiden almost gets them all killed by walkers. Rick goes outside the wall to find a pistol that he stashed earlier, but it's missing. Uh-oh. And Deanna gives Rick and Michonne jobs as constables. Pretty cool though. That night, Rick tells Carol and Daryl that they should be prepared to take over if the community fails to protect itself. In the next episode, Rick, Carol, and Daryl begin scheming ways to steal back their weapons. While in the woods, they come across a walker with a W carved into its forehead. While that happens, Michonne and Rick question why they were suddenly given roles as local law enforcement. They also push Deanna to implement more security, including a 24/7 watchtower. Later, the community holds a welcoming party for their new members, and Carol sneaks into the storeroom when everyone's distracted to swipe 3 pistols, but Jesse's son Sam catches her. Uh-oh. Carol tells Sam not to tell his mother, or she'll tie him to a tree and feed him to the walkers.
And you'll get cookies.
I'm guessing he would have kept his mouth shut for cookies alone. In the next episode, Rick's group is getting more and more comfortable in the town of Alexandria, with many of them taking on leadership roles. Jesse's husband Pete tries to cultivate a friendship with Rick, and it seems like he really likes his alcohol. While that happens, Gabriel tells Deanna that he doesn't trust Rick's group, and Maggie overhears.
They're not good people.
Okay, Gabriel, but they could have just killed you and not saved you all of those times. Later, Glenn, Noah, Tara, and Eugene go on a run to repair the town's solar system with Aiden and Nicholas. But they're ambushed by walkers who kill Aiden. Glenn almost saves Noah, but Nicholas sacrifices him to save himself. Jeez. It makes for a really awkward ride home. Meanwhile, Sam keeps pestering Carol for cookies, and eventually she gives up. While the cookies are baking, Sam asks Carol for one of her guns. When she asks why, he just runs home. Carol follows him and then is met by Pete, who coldly turns her away. Carol then figures out that Pete is abusing Jesse and maybe Sam too. She tells this to Rick and suggests that the only way to stop Pete is to kill him. Next up is episode 15 of season 5. Nicholas, who is a coward, lies and blames Glenn for the deaths of Aiden and Noah. What an asshole. Meanwhile, Deanna takes away the gang's firearms and prohibits Rick and the others from leaving while she investigates. To make matters worse, Deanna tells Rick that she already knows about Pete's behavior.
Pete's a surgeon.
Oh, okay, then I guess that makes abuse A-okay. Deanna says that they can exile him if it comes down to it, but Rick points out that that would leave the town vulnerable. As that's happening, Carl follows Enid outside the walls, and they bond over the brutality they grew up in. He totally has a crush on her, by the way. Meanwhile, Daryl and Aaron come across another walker with a W carved into his forehead. What is going on with these W's? Later, Rick offers Jesse protection against Pete, but she turns him down. Pete catches them talking, and he and Rick end up in the street brawl, which leads to Rick drawing his gun and looking totally nuts. Michonne knocks him out before he can do any more damage. Now for the season 5 finale. Morgan is still following Rick's trail when he's ambushed by a guy named Owen, who has a W carved into his forehead. Owen says he's a member of a scavenger group called the Wolves, and he plans to take everything Morgan has and kill him. But then a second man sneaks up on Morgan, and Morgan takes both of his enemies down with ease. Later, Daryl and Aaron are saved from walkers by Morgan, who tells them he's looking for Rick. As that's happening, Glenn sees Nicholas scaling the wall and decides to track him and find out what he's up to. Gabriel also goes outside the wall unarmed. He tries to commit suicide by walker, but changes his mind and kills it instead. When he gets back to Alexandria, he leaves the gate ajar accidentally. Uh-oh. Back with Glenn, Nicholas shoots Glenn, wounding him, but later that night, Glenn catches up and holds him at gunpoint. Nicholas begs for his life, and Glenn spares him. Way to stick to being a good dude, Glenn. Back in Alexandria, Deanna is holding a forum to discuss if Rick should be exiled. And in good news, Pete has been separated from Jesse and Sam. While on his way to the forum, Rick sees that the gate is open, and he sees a trail of blood leading to walkers among the houses. As this happens, Sasha goes to the church to seek guidance from Gabriel, who says he can't help her, and that Bob and Tyrese were killed as a result of their sins. Sasha holds him at gunpoint, but Maggie stops her from pulling the trigger. As the episode ends, Rick's friends speak in his defense. Deanna reveals Gabriel's claims about the group to the forum, and Rick shows up late, carrying the corpse of a walker, and says that the walls can't be the only thing protecting them. Pete interrupts Rick's speech, drunk and flailing Michonne's katana around. He kills Reg by accident. Deanna orders Rick to execute Pete. Rick shoots him in the head just as Aaron, Daryl, and Morgan arrive. And now we're on to season 6. After the town meeting, Morgan tells Rick about the group known as the Wolves. Rick tells Deanna that it's time to stop bringing in new members of their community. Which, I mean, it was really only a matter of time, right? Morgan then has a very serious question for Michonne.
Did you take one of my protein bars?
She did, Morgan. I saw it happen. The other members of Alexandria are skeptical of Rick's leadership, and Morgan encourages his old friends to remember his conscience. Rick and Morgan then find a herd of thousands of walkers stuck in a nearby quarry. That's obviously not going to work, so Rick develops a plan to lure them away from the community, with Daryl luring them away on his bike. Wow, it's a fun post-apocalyptic parade! But a horn blares, luring the walkers off their parade route, back in the direction of Alexandria. In the next episode, Carol is hanging out with the other women in town, teaching them how to cook, and Sam is sitting on her stoop, bummed out about his dead dad. So Carol tells him to get over it. Okay. Meanwhile, Gabriel apologizes to Carl for telling Deanna that they were bad people and asks him for self-defense lessons. Suddenly, the community is attacked by wolves. Spencer fires on a truck, killing the driver, who lands on the truck's horn. Carol goes undercover and starts killing off wolves, and Carl fortifies himself, Enid, and Judith inside. But Enid flees the town. Morgan, meanwhile, tracks down the wolves, led by the one he let go last season. He convinces them to leave, seeing as the Alexandrians have guns and they do not. After the battle, Aaron finds his backpack on one of the corpses, meaning he was the one who accidentally led them to Alexandria. Gotta be more careful, my guy. In the next episode, Rick and the others are trying to race ahead of the herd before it reaches Alexandria. Rick breaks off from the others in hopes of leading some of the herd off with an RV. While that goes on, Nicholas leads Glenn, Michonne, and others to a nearby town to find temporary shelter. Heath is appalled by Rick's brutal attitude, so Michonne tells him what's up.
Have you ever been covered in so much blood that you didn't know if it was yours, or Walker's, or your friends?
Gonna go out on a limb and say no, Heath has not. The herd is drawn to the store, and they're forced to flee. Nicholas tries to lead everyone away, but they're surrounded, and Nicholas kills himself. And it looks like Glenn is done for as well. Rick arrives at the RV, but it won't start up, and becomes surrounded by walkers. Uh-oh. Meanwhile, Michonne, Heath, and Scott make it back to Alexandria. Just barely. The next episode shows Morgan's life before Alexandria. After Rick and Michonne visited him a few seasons back, he accidentally knocked over a lantern and burned his house down. He then camped out in a forest, killing anyone, undead or otherwise, that intruded on his territory. Eventually, though, he found a secluded cabin and met Eastman, a psychiatrist.
Kill me! Kill me! Kill me!
Yep. Looks like Morgan checked into therapy not a minute too soon. Eastman then teaches Morgan some martial arts under the philosophy that all life is precious, including one's own. Time goes by, and Eastman and Morgan bond as he heals from his PTSD. However, Eastman has been bitten by a walker, and Morgan has to kill him before he can turn. Then he makes his way to Terminus to track down Rick. Back in the present, Morgan recounts the story of a wolf prisoner that he's taken captive in hopes of changing his ways. In the next episode, Rick makes it back to Alexandria just before the walker herd arrives, pushing into the town's barrier. Then we see Aaron tell the townsfolk that the wolves reached the safe zone because of his carelessness, which really bums everyone out. Maggie hears that Glenn is missing and leaves with Aaron to find him, all because she has something super important to tell him.
I'm pregnant.
Surprise! Meanwhile, Tara and a town doctor in training, Denise, start kissing. Ahem. And Rick and Jesse start kissing. Ahem. Deanna also crowns Rick the new leader of Alexandria, so good day to be Rick overall. On to Season 6, Episode 6. Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham are leading the parade of walkers away from Alexandria when they're ambushed by several men in cars. And Daryl is separated from the others and is captured. Dwight tells Daryl that they were forced to flee the community that they had joined. Later, we see Daryl steal their supplies and almost run off with them until he sees that there's insulin inside. Tina is bitten by walkers and doesn't make it, and Daryl invites Dwight and his wife, Sherry, to Alexandria, but they steal Daryl's motorcycle and crossbow instead before driving off. Damn it. Abraham and Sasha, meanwhile, hide in an insurance office while they wait for Daryl. They find a walker trapped behind glass. Yep, he's been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. After that, Daryl finally catches up to them with his new friend Patty, who is a truck? And they drive back to Alexandria. In the next episode, we catch up with Glenn, who is not dead, actually. Way to go, Glenn! He finds Enid holed up in a store, but she runs off. Glenn then finds her in a restaurant and convinces her to return to Alexandria. They have some fun playing with balloons on the way home, which turns out to be a whimsical way to distract walkers. Back in Alexandria, Rick, Michonne, and Carol question Morgan's philosophy of not killing anyone, including the wolves, and Carol is suspicious that he's holding one of them captive. In the end, the town clock tower falls, tearing down the wall. In the next episode, walkers invade Alexandria, so Rick and a few others take shelter in Jesse's house, where they discover that Deanna has been bitten. Damn it, are you kidding me? Good thing she already put Rick in charge. We then see Carl taking down Jesse's older son, Ron, when he lashes out and busts open a window, attracting walkers and forcing everyone to retreat upstairs. The gang only has a few minutes to escape, so you know what that means. Bloody camouflage time! As that happens, Carol takes shelter with Morgan and finds out that that he and Denise were treating a captured wolf. Carol wants to kill the wolf right this second, despite their more immediate concerns. Morgan knocks out Carol, then the wolf knocks out Morgan and takes Denise hostage. Yikes. Meanwhile, Sasha, Daryl, and Abraham are stopped by a biker gang known as the Saviors, who tell them that all of their stuff now belongs to Negan. In the next episode, the Saviors find out that they messed with the wrong crew. Rookie mistake. Make sure that your enemies don't have a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. Meanwhile, Rick's blood and guts covered group is trying to sneak out of Alexandria. Gabriel offers to take Judith to his church. The others almost make it out when Sam proves to be too soft for this world and he starts crying, attracting walkers, getting himself and his mother devoured. Ron blames Rick for this and tries to shoot him, but Michonne stabs him, and when the gun goes off, Carl loses an eye, but he's really chill about it. Meanwhile, Carol is not happy with Morgan for how this whole thing went down. When she sees Denise running with the wolf, Carol shoots him. While that goes on, the others get Carl to the infirmary and begin treating his eye hole. Rick rages out at the walkers, inspiring others to fight alongside him, including Gabriel. Heck yeah, redemption arc! Things are looking really bad, but Sasha, Abraham, and Daryl arrive in the nick of time with the fuel truck, and then they fill a pond with fuel and set it on fire with the RPG launcher, finally giving Alexandria the upper hand against the walkers. And don't worry, Carl's fine. He's gonna be sporting the pirate look from now on though. In episode 10 of season 6, it's been a couple of months since the huge walker battle in Alexandria, and things are returning back to semi-normal. Rick and Daryl are bringing back a truck full of supplies when they find Jesus, whose real name is Paul. Jesus steals their truck, but Rick and Daryl catch up to him when he's changing a tire. On the drive back, the supply truck is submerged in a lake during another fight with Jesus. So Rick and Daryl bring him back to Alexandria while he's unconscious. Meanwhile, Michonne follows Spencer out into the woods where they find Carl being chased by a zombified Deanna. Spencer kills his mother, burying her under a tree. Later, Michonne asks Carl why he didn't kill the walker.
Because it should be someone who loved her, someone who's family, and I'd do it for you.
Damn, post-apocalyptic bonding. Also, Rick and Michonne are in love now. About dang time if you ask me. Jesus very rudely interrupts their nice moment and tells Rick that he needs to talk. On to the next episode. Jesus tells Rick that while he was loose, he did a quick inventory and noticed that they were running low on food, suggesting they trade with his own community called the Hilltop. While there, Maggie gets checked out by an obstetrician named Harlan and gets an ultrasound picture of the baby. Aww. Then Rick's group meets with the leader of Hilltop, a really rude former businessman named Gregory. Maggie meets with him to negotiate a trade deal, but talks are interrupted by a Hilltop resident trying to kill Gregory on the orders of Negan. Yup, the biker gang dude. Soon enough, a fight breaks out between Rick's group and those in Hilltop. Ah, this must be why people call him Jesus. Jesus tells Rick and the others that Negan has been extorting the town for supplies. Maggie, armed with a new bargaining chip, secures a deal with Gregory to take out Negan and return a hostage in exchange for half of their supplies. In the next episode, Carol's life of making cookies and wearing sweaters is starting to grow on her. She's getting pretty bummed out about all the people she's killed. But on the bright side, she bonds with Tobin, and they kiss. Meanwhile, Rick begins planning a sneak attack against the Saviors, Negan's biker gang, under the ruse that they're delivering Gregory's head. Happy birthday to you. The gang infiltrates the base in pairs, methodically killing off guards. Hilltop resident Craig is rescued and sent back to Hilltop, and it seems like Rick's group has completed their mission. But the next morning, they find out that Carol and Maggie have been taken as hostages. Damn it! Next up, we've got unlucky episode number 13. Carol and Maggie's captors observe Rick taking Primo hostage. Since they're at a numerical disadvantage, they bring their hostages to a slaughterhouse for interrogation, while waiting for reinforcements. Meanwhile, Carol pretends to be deeply religious and terrified, and fakes hyperventilation. She tells their captors that Maggie is pregnant, and after that, they end up leaving Carol and Maggie unguarded, enabling them to escape and murder their captors. Primo tells Rick that he's Negan. Echoing something Carol's captor said, Rick kills him without hesitation. In the next episode, life in Alexandria is returning to something resembling kind of normal. Daryl, Rosita, and Denise head on a run to a nearby pharmacy for medicine. It's Denise's first time outside the walls, and the trio secures the goods. Denise also risks her life for some soda.
You want to live, you take chances. That's how it works.
Man, she really wanted that soda. Denise can't finish her speech because she's shot in the head with Daryl's old crossbow. Dwight is back, and he's kidnapped Eugene. Eugene creates a diversion, giving him time to chomp Dwight in the crotch. Effective and hilarious. After that, a shootout ensues, and Dwight retreats with the others. Daryl, Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita return to Alexandria and bury Denise's body, and Abraham gives Eugene a nice compliment.
You know how to bite a dick, Eugene. I mean that with the utmost of respect.
Carol is still reeling from her experiences with the Saviors and grappling with her own kills. Also, she leaves a note for Tobin saying she's leaving Alexandria and asks to not be followed. In the next episode, Alexandria is locked down against the Savior threat. Carol has skipped town and was quickly caught by a Savior patrol, but as we know, Carol can handle herself just fine. Morgan and Rick go after Carol and find a non-hostile survivor, who Rick tries to kill, so Morgan stops him and sends Rick back home. As that happens, Maggie asks Enid for help cutting her hair. Either something's wrong, or Maggie really hates her haircut. Daryl wants to avenge Denise. He's followed by Rosita, Glenn, and Michonne. The trio reaches Daryl and tries to talk him out of his quest, but instead, Rosita is convinced to go with him. On their way back, Michonne and Glenn are captured by Dwight and his men. Damn it! In the season 6 finale, Maggie is having pregnancy complications, so Rick and the group try to get her to Dr. Harlan in Hilltop, but unfortunately their paths are blocked by Saviors, and there are a lot of them. As that happens, a survivor from the group of men that Carol attacked tracks her down, shooting her twice, but Morgan arrives just in time and he breaks his vow of peace and kills the man who shot Carol to save her life. Aww. Meanwhile, Eugene volunteers to be bait to distract the Saviors, splitting up the gang so they can bring Maggie to Hilltop on foot, but it doesn't work and they're captured. It's a really big group, and we finally meet the real Negan, and he's pretty darn scary.
Gonna be Pee-Pee Pants City here real soon.
Negan says that they all work for him now and will be taking their stuff. Negan then introduces the gang to his spiky bat, Lucille, and plays Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo to choose a member of the group to bludgeon to death. And the worst part is, we don't even get to know who it was until season 7. It was Abraham. At the top of season 7, we learn that Negan's first victim was Abraham, followed soon by Glenn. This makes Rick vow to kill Negan, and Negan goes on a series of side quests with Rick in order to crush his resolve. When Rick still refuses to submit, Negan wants to play a new game called Hack Your Son's Arm Off with a Hatchet, or I'll kill all of your friends while you watch. Rick's the only one out there with a son, so he gets to go first. Negan wins the game, which means Carl gets to keep his arm. Hooray! Then Negan announces that his group will be in Alexandria in 1 week to take half of our gang's supplies, but for now, they're just taking Daryl. Meanwhile, Sasha takes Maggie to Hilltop to get her treatment for her pregnancy complications. After that depressing series of events, we're on to episode 2. We catch up with Carol and Morgan, who are being taken to a community known as the Kingdom, where Carol's gunshot wounds can be treated. Carol wakes up a few days later, and Morgan brings her to the community leader, this dude called King Ezekiel, who also has a domesticated cat. I never said what kind of cat.
I don't know what the hell's going on in the most wonderful way.
Same, Carol. Later, we find out that the Kingdom is also being forced to produce for the Saviors, though most of them don't know. Ezekiel catches Carol trying to leave and levels with her, and we find out that Ezekiel was a zookeeper and an amateur doctor before the outbreak, and he puts on this song and dance to give them someone good to follow in the world. He then offers Carol a nearby empty house so she can be close by, but isolated. Next, we see that Daryl's new life is like a prisoner for the Saviors. Dwight feeds him dog food and forces him to listen to the song Easy Street over and over and over and over and over again. The idea being to break Daryl and get him to join their group. But to no one's surprise, Daryl proves to be one tough nut to crack. When Daryl's brought to Negan, he says that when Tina got sick, he offered to marry her in exchange for medicine. How generous! Sherry, Tina, and Dwight escaped when they ran into Daryl. They returned after Tina's death, and Sherry said she'd marry him in exchange for Negan not killing her husband. Not much of a choice here, and as a punishment, he branded Dwight's face with a hot iron. Still, Daryl refuses to be one of Negan's minions, and he's tossed back into his cell. In episode 4, Negan and the Saviors arrive at Alexandria several days ahead of schedule, taking most of their furniture and medicine, as well as all of their firearms and ammo. Such assholes. Rick asks for Daryl in return, but Daryl stays silent. No one is happy with Rick about these circumstances. After that, Rosita finds a bullet casing and asks Eugene to make a live round from it, as she has a hidden gun in the woods. On to the next episode. Maggie is recovering in Hilltop, and the baby is just fine. Harlan tells Maggie that she should remain in Hilltop for the rest of her pregnancy, but George is not all too keen on this idea. Man, why you gotta be such a jerk? That night, Sasha and Maggie help defend the town from a walker attack, but Gregory still doesn't want them to stay. Soon enough, the Saviors show up and raid the community, led by Simon. Simon says that he released the walkers on purpose, seizing the opportunity. Gregory takes him to the supply closet, intending to hand over Maggie and Sasha, but they're gone. Meanwhile, Carl and Enid sneak out of Alexandria to visit Maggie and Sasha and arrive as the Saviors are packing up. Carl hides in the truck, planning to kill Negan before he parts with Enid, and they kiss. Aww. After that, Jesus stands up to Gregory, who cowered like a big baby for the Saviors, and Maggie gives him her 2 cents. Heck yeah! Jesus sneaks into one of the trucks too, where he's surprised to see Carl. In the next episode, we catch up with Tara and Heath, who missed the whole thing with the Saviors during their weeks-long supply run. Turns out the two actually got separated after Tara fell off a bridge during a walker attack. Sometime later though, Tara washed up on a beach and was brought to the girls-only community of Oceanside by Cindy. The backstory? Well, the Saviors actually killed off all of the men in Oceanside over the age of 10. The reason? As a precaution. Cindy makes Tara swear not to tell anybody about the community. After that, Tara arrives back at Alexandria and is greeted by Eugene, who's emotional seeing her. Tara is devastated by the loss of Denise, and Rosita asks if she has any leads on guns or weapons. Way to keep a promise, Tara. In Season 7, Episode 7, Jesus and Carl are still hiding in the Savior truck. Carl convinces Jesus to get out and scout the area, and Carl kills a couple of the Saviors before being pinned down by Dwight. Seeing this, Negan is impressed with Carl and gives him a tour of the factory. Negan shows Carl how all of the citizens do what he says and introduces him to his harem of wives. Negan then forces Carl to show him his eye socket. Negan then tells Carl to sing for him, which he does. And after that, Negan takes Carl back to Alexandria. While he's gone, Daryl finds a key with a note under the door that says, "Go. Now." In the next episode, Spencer approaches Negan and asks to be put in charge instead of Rick, saying that he'd do a way better job of being bossed around. Meanwhile, Rosita tries to shoot Negan as revenge, but she hits Lucille instead, and I guess Lucille is immortal. Olivia is killed, and Eugene is captured as punishment. Later, we see Daryl break out of his cell with the help of Jesus and an anonymous stranger. My bet's on Sherry, though. Michonne, meanwhile, finally convinces Rick that it's time to go to war. They leave with Carl, Rosita, and Tara for Hilltop to prepare for war against Negan. Daryl and Jesus meet them there too. In episode 9, Father Gabriel takes Alexandria's entire stock of food and dips in the middle of the night. Rude. Meanwhile, in Hilltop, Rick and the others are trying to convince Gregory to fight, to no avail. They're about to leave when a group of Hilltop citizens pledge their support to Rick. Jesus suggests they visit King Ezekiel next, and Ezekiel says that he and his tiger don't want to get involved, but offer Daryl asylum.
What the hell are you telling me for? We both had sex with the same dead guy.
Okay, geez, sorry, Rosita. In Alexandria, the Saviors, led by Simon, are searching for Daryl. Rick's group is bummed to see all of their food is gone, so they pursue Gabriel, who conveniently left behind a trail of clues, leading them to a dilapidated yard where they're surrounded by a group known as the Scavengers. Episode 10 of this season is titled New Best Friends. Sounds promising so far. Richard, a soldier of Ezekiel's kingdom, asks Daryl for help defeating the Saviors. Daryl is down for this until Richard says that he's basically offering Carol up as a human sacrifice in order to make King Ezekiel angry enough to go to war. Maybe it's not so promising after all. Daryl beats Richard up for his bad idea. Show him who's boss, Daryl. Meanwhile, Rick and the others are told by the Scavengers that they own them and they must buy themselves back. More of this crap? Their leader Jadis is down to fight the Saviors, but only if they get some of their stuff. Gabriel, meanwhile, explains that he was kidnapped by these guys, so all good now, right? After that, Daryl goes to Carol's house, and Carol explains that she didn't want to lose anyone else, and Daryl gives her the lowdown on what's happened with Alexandria, leaving out the part where Glenn and Abraham were brutally murdered. Daryl then heads to Hilltop to continue preparing for war. In the next episode, we see how Eugene's hostage situation is going. He's given a nice room, and it's quite a bit nicer than Daryl's, complete with chips and beer. Eugene reverts to his old lies about being a scientist with multiple PhDs, and Negan takes a liking to him, sending over a couple of his wives for the evening. Oh. They then get drunk and Eugene shows them some science. The girls are so impressed that they ask him to make a few poison pills for them, and he makes them but refuses to turn them over once he figures out they're to kill Negan. How is that not obvious from the beginning, you dense idiot? Eugene then pledges his allegiance to the Saviors, drunk on his newfound power and status in the community. Meanwhile, Negan and the Saviors aren't too happy to hear about Daryl's escape and murder of one of their colleagues. Sherry's gone missing too, and Dwight blames Dr. Carson for this, so Negan throws him into a furnace. On to the next episode. Rick and Michonne are on the hunt for guns to bring to the Scavengers, which they find at a traveling carnival. They get the guns and find a huge supply of rations before enjoying a romantic evening together, but the Scavengers want more guns. Jeez. Meanwhile, Tara hears that Rick still needs more guns. Oh man, Tara, I really thought you were going to keep your promise. Later, Rosita travels to Hilltop to meet with Sasha, where they make a pact to kill Negan together. Yeah, you ladies are going to have to get in a long ass line. And now for episode 13. The Saviors are at Ezekiel's kingdom for their supply pickup when they see that a singular cantaloupe is missing from the planned delivery. Alright, no need to be dramatic about it. The young soldier Benjamin is rushed to Carol's cottage for treatment, where he ultimately dies. After that, Morgan finds the missing cantaloupe and Richard tells him that he hid it on purpose in order to provoke the Saviors, hoping that he would be killed and Ezekiel would join the war. Hearing this, Morgan strangles Richard to death before going to Carol's house to tell her about Glenn and Abraham. Carol then approaches the king with a message.
We have to get ready. We have to fight.
Aw yeah, badass Carol is back. Of course, after this quick gardening mission. In episode 14, the Saviors do a surprise raid on Hilltop, bringing Harlan back with them, and Sasha and Rosita sneak out of the community to carry out their secret mission to kill Negan. Luckily, Daryl wasn't caught, and he apologizes to Maggie, feeling guilty over Glenn's death. And we see that the Hilltop residents are losing confidence in Gregory's leadership abilities. It's about damn time. Then, Sasha and Rosita arrive at their destination and try to convince Eugene to go with them. Once a coward, always a coward. After that, Sasha breaks into the factory to kill Negan herself and sends Rosita away. As she flees, Rosita sees someone watching her. In the penultimate episode of the season, Tara leads Rick and a small group to Oceanside. Their leader Natanya won't authorize her people to fight, but after Rick leads both communities in a fight against walkers, a few residents of Oceanside decide to take up the fight. We then find out that Sasha was kidnapped at the Savior compound. Damn. However, Negan is impressed with her guts to break in. Who the does this guy think he is? He then tells Sasha that he knows about Rick's plans and thinks she should join them. Eugene encourages her to join the dark side as well, and Sasha asks Eugene for a weapon, and he brings her one of the poison capsules he made earlier. Meanwhile, Rick, Tara, and the others return to Alexandria, and they have a surprise visitor. Oh, so now he wants help. And now for the season 7 finale. Dwight tells Rick that Negan was planning a major attack. Rick assembles his army and sending word to the Scavengers and their leader Jadis. When the Saviors arrive, Eugene asks his friends to surrender, calling himself Negan in a show of loyalty. Before any fighting can start, the Scavengers turn their weapons on Rick's group. Guess the Saviors made them a better offer. Dwight appears to have turned on them, too. Double ugh. Meanwhile, Sasha is in the back of a Savior truck laying in a casket. Negan opens it, trying to threaten to kill her and everyone else in Alexandria. What's worse is he demands their pool table, but whoops, Sasha's already dead, having taken the poison pill. Gunfire breaks out and the Alexandrians are still way overpowered. Negan is about to kill Carl in front of Rick when Ezekiel arrives with his kingdom. And yes, he brought his super cool tiger. The Saviors and Scavengers are forced to retreat, for now, and Alexandria, Hilltop, and Ezekiel's kingdom agree to combine forces to take down the Saviors, but not until next season. And what's the deal with Daryl finding all these notes? Is Dwight a good guy? It's time to kick off season 8. Also, this is episode 100. And I'm not at all tired, so that's fun. The episode kicks off with Rick and the gang converging at the Hilltop to form the Militia, a coalition of the people of Alexandria, Hilltop, and the kingdom. They're preparing for war against the Saviors once again. We see Carl looking for gas and suddenly meeting a guy named Sadiq, but Papa Rick sneaks up and fires a warning shot to scare him off, worried that the guy was a Savior spy. After that, Rick, Maggie, and Ezekiel lead the militia to the Savior compound in their armored cars, which do not look as cool as they sound. Meanwhile, Daryl, Carol, Tara, and Morgan lead a huge horde of walkers to the compound by blowing up a car, which does look as cool as it sounds. Hell yeah. At the Savior base, Rick reiterates his promise promise to kill Negan. The Saviors refuse to surrender. Gregory, who is still a huge jerk, comes out from the base and says that Hilltop will stand with Negan, but the citizens stand with Maggie. Simon pushes Gregory down the stairs, which was cathartic for everyone. Yep. This is why we all liked him playing Trevor in GTA 5. The militia blows up their fences, allowing walkers to overrun the base, and Gabriel feels compelled to help Gregory. He must have found God again, but Gregory bails on him and steals their car. Gabriel takes shelter in a box trailer, and Negan is in there too. Uh-oh. As the episode ends, Carl returns to the spot where he found Sadiq and leaves him some food. What a good kid. In the next episode, Rick and the militia assault different savior outposts. Tara and Jesus take a group of saviors captive, and they surrender. Morgan and Tara both really want to kill these guys, but Jesus stops them. This guy is all about peace, and that's why they call him Jesus. Also, Ezekiel's tiger mauls a walker, which I just wanted to make sure you saw because it is awesome. Oh, what a good kitty. After that, Rick impales a guy, and then finds a baby sleeping in a crib and gets really sad about it. Looks like he kinda hates himself. He's then held at gunpoint by Morales, a survivor from the Atlanta camp who joined the Saviors. In the next episode, Daryl kills Morales, so reunion over. Then Rick and Daryl continue looking for a machine gun cache, but they just can't find it. So they take the baby, Gracie, instead. Aw. Meanwhile, Aaron's boyfriend, Eric, succumbs to his injuries, and they share a final kiss before he dies. Back with Jesus, he, Morgan, and Tara are leading their captives to Hilltop when a walker horde attacks, enabling a few of them to escape, including Jared. Gregory gets to Hilltop and begs Maggie to be let in. She ultimately relents, but Gregory is still the worst. And he's a pancake thief? Jesus convinces her to let the captive saviors stay there too. At the start of the next episode, Ezekiel and his kingdom are overwhelmed by saviors, killing them and injuring the king. That's when a dorky-looking savior named Gunther takes Ezekiel hostage, saying Negan will give him a big reward for his head. Ezekiel's right-hand man, Jerry, takes an axe to Gunther and saves the king. Carol clears out a savior compound, killing all but 2 of them. Classic Carol. She then sees Ezekiel and Jerry being overrun by walkers, so she leaves the 2 saviors and goes to help them. The 2 saviors then escape in a Humvee. Thanks to Rick and Daryl, they don't make it very far. After that, Jerry, Carol, and Ezekiel are almost overwhelmed by walkers, but his tiger, Shiva, sacrifices herself for them. Goodbye, Shiva. I'm sorry for never using your name until just now. In the next episode, we catch up with Gabriel and Negan. Gabriel tries to get Negan to confess of his sins, but Negan insists that he's a good guy and those around him are making choices. Gabriel then manages to snatch Negan's gun, and they eventually confess their sins to each other. They then bust out of the trailer and cover themselves in walker guts to get through the horde. Meanwhile, Simon and Negan's other lieutenants fight amongst themselves, believing that an insider is providing information to Rick and the others. Simon shuts off the power to conserve resources, and the workers begin to protest their conditions, but Negan returns before it turns into a riot. Negan then tosses Gabriel into a cell where Eugene sees he's super duper sick. In the next episode, Rick meets with Jadis to try to turn the scavengers against Negan, but she isn't interested and takes him prisoner. After that, Carol meets with Ezekiel, who doesn't believe in his leadership abilities anymore. Yeah, I'd be depressed if my big cat died too. Meanwhile, Maggie isn't happy when she sees Jesus giving the captives food and water. I mean, what do you expect? From a guy nicknamed Jesus, of all people. Also, Maggie is still mad at Gregory for calling her the wrong name all the time and makes him join the prisoners. Maggie tells Jesus that she sees the saviors as bargaining chips, which makes him super sad. Later, we see Carl finding his old buddy Sadiq in the forest and inviting him back to Alexandria. A few walkers attack them, but these guys are pros, and they dispatch the zombies and move on. On to the next episode. Eugene figures out that Dwight is the mole, leaking information to Rick and the militia, and Gabriel tries to convince Eugene to help their friends. He also gets chewed out by one of Negan's wives, who tells him that he's selfish and he could have built something better, but chose not to. Negan tells Eugene that if he can get rid of the walkers, he will be made second in command, and Eugene builds a speaker drone to lure them away from the compound. But before he can use it, Dwight holds him at gunpoint, saying that Negan will kill all of his friends. But Eugene launches his drone anyway. Dang, that was one hell of a shot. Meanwhile, Daryl drives a truck through the walls of the compound and the walkers flood the lower floors. Eugene, enraged that he doesn't get to be Negan's prince, tells him that he has a new plan and they'll need a lot of bullets. After that, Rick negotiates his release as a prisoner after he overpowers her guards with the help of an armored walker. He convinces Jadis to at least scope the situation out with him, but when they arrive, the horde is gone and the saviors have escaped. And now let's dive into the mid-season finale finale of Season 8. Rick is rescued by Carol and Jerry, who split up to warn the allied communities that Negan is planning a counterattack. Meanwhile, in the kingdom, Ezekiel creates his own distraction to let the people escape. In Alexandria, Carl is being contemplative and writing letters alone in a room. That is some bad handwriting, man. But I guess he hasn't been to school for a while, so it kind of makes sense. He's about to deliver more food to his new buddy Sadiq when Negan orders the community to surrender over a loudspeaker. Carl tells Negan that he will sacrifice himself for the town, but it was really just a ruse to allow the residents to escape through the sewers. After that, Alexandria burns to the ground, and as that's happening, Eugene's guilty conscience finally gets the best of him, and he helps Gabriel and Dr. Harlan escape to the Hilltop community. After that, Rick heads back home to see the mess that Alexandria is in, and he and Negan wrestle a little bit before Rick escapes, severely injured. He then meets up with Michonne and Carl and has something to tell them. Carl, you idiot, this is why we don't wander into the woods alone. In the next episode, we see that Carl ends up in his final hours. He writes letters to all of his friends, spends time with his little sister, and gets Sadiq into the sewers with the others. He tells Judith to be strong and gives her his hat before Daryl takes the others to the hilltop. Meanwhile, Carol leads the citizens of the kingdom to her cottage before going back to rescue Ezekiel. She then also meets up with Morgan, who's definitely over his whole all life is precious thing. The leader of his group of saviors is killed by Benjamin's little brother Henry, and they retake the kingdom. After that, we see Rick and Michonne get Carl to a church. Carl pleads with his father to end the fighting and work with the saviors to build a new, better life, and Rick swears to become a better man. Carl then shoots himself, so his dad doesn't have to do it, and Rick and Michonne bury him. In the next episode, Maggie sends Negan a present. I didn't say it was a nice present. Negan sends Simon to the junkyard, ordering him to kill one of Jadis's people, but only one. Simon doesn't listen and kills them all and lies about what he did. Meanwhile, Aaron and Enid have traveled back to Oceanside in hopes of persuading them to join the fight, but they're not interested, and Aaron decides to stick around until he can convince them. We then see Rick and Michonne go to the junkyard where they find that all of the scavengers have become walkers. Yikes. Jadis was not killed by Simon, and Rick blames her friends' deaths on her own double crossing. She begs to go with them, but Rick refuses. Jadis lures her old friends into a waste shredder to protect herself. After that, Rick contacts Negan on the walkie-talkie, and he says that Carl is dead and wrote him a letter asking that they stop fighting. Negan isn't interested and says that Carl died because Rick failed as a leader and as a father. Ouch. On to episode 11. Daryl, Tara, Rosita, and Sadiq are leading the survivors from Alexandria to Hilltop. Tara splits off with Dwight and yells at him for killing her girlfriend and fires a shot. She misses and he runs off to rejoin the saviors, telling him that Alexandrians aren't anywhere nearby. Okay, Dwight, I see you. At Hilltop, Henry is creeping everyone out with his lack of remorse over killing a savior. Yeesh. Daryl's group arrives and delivers the bad news about Carl, but on the bright side, Sakid offers to be their doctor. While that goes on, Dr. Harlan helps Gabriel escape the Savior compound, but Gabriel is going blind, and on their way back to Hilltop, they're caught by Saviors, and Gabriel is recaptured and put to work making ammunition with Eugene. Negan has his own idea to cover their weapons in walker guts, turning people instead of killing them. Disgusting, but pretty damn effective. In the next episode, Dwight is struggling with hiding his loyalty to Rick from Negan and the others, and honestly, I'm having a hard time remembering what side he's on at this point, too. Maggie finds some empty boxes outside of Hilltop, asking for vinyl records. An absolutely wild ask during a full-out war, but whatever. It turns out to be a woman named Georgie. Maggie hands over the records, and Georgie gives them food and makes Maggie read her screenplay, which she claimed is a book of knowledge about the past. Meanwhile, Rick gets into a car chase with Negan and traps him in a building, where they have a will-they-won't-they murder moment. And we find out that Negan is weirdly attached to Lucille. Bro, you could definitely find a new baseball bat. Negan and Lucille escape only to be captured by Jadis. Simon, seeing a job opening since Negan has disappeared, takes over as leader of the Saviors and rallies the others for an attack on Hilltop. In the next episode, the Saviors approach Hilltop with their tainted weapons. Maggie tells Simon that if they attack, she'll kill their prisoners, but Simon doesn't care at all, making all of the Savior prisoners really sad. Daryl drives on his motorcycle to start the war in style. Dang, what would he have done if they had surrendered? surrendered. Heavy casualties are suffered on both sides. The next night, the injured soldiers at Hilltop turn into walkers as a result of the tainted weapons. Yeah, he's gonna need a little bit more than a doctor. The infected attack several residents in their sleep, and chaos ensues. Henry decides that now is a good time to approach the captured saviors to figure out who killed his brother, leading to a prison breakout. Tara, who was shot by Dwight, did not turn into a walker, so maybe he is a good guy after all. Several of the prisoners, including Alden, stayed behind, not happy with how Simon treated their lives as expendable. In the next episode, we find out what Jadis has been up to since capturing Negan and Lucille. Negan tries to apologize for what happened to her people, since it was technically Simon, but she's still trying to figure out the most creative way to kill him. Negan swipes a flare from her bag and threatens to burn her photos from her life before the apocalypse if she doesn't return Lucille. Mid-speech, a helicopter flies by, and Jadis tries to signal it, but it flies away. After that, we see Negan swear on his private parts that he'll settle things with Simon, and right after that, he asks Jadis to join him. While that's going on, Morgan and Carol go on a quest to find Henry, who disappeared after playing bad cop with the prisoners. Morgan gives up and meets up with Rick in the woods, where they get captured by the escaped saviors. A horde floods the bar they're in, so the saviors let them loose. As a thank you, Rick and Morgan kill them too. Rude, guys. When they get back to Hilltop, Rick finally reads his letter from Carl. And as the episode ends, Carol rescues Henry from walkers, so at least one good deed was done today. Aww, Carol gets to be a mom again. Episode 15 begins with Rick rereading his letter from Carl, in which he urges Rick to end the war with Negan and work towards peace. Aaron finally convinces the Oceanside crew to fight the saviors. Rosita and Daryl kidnap Eugene from his ammo factory, but he comes up with a way to escape. Bonus points for creativity, I guess. At the Savior Complex, haha, get it? Savior Complex? Anyway, Gregory tries to make amends with Simon, who has taken over after telling the community that Negan is dead. Simon puts Gregory to work instead, and Negan is not dead, and Simon colludes with Dwight to kill him. Dwight tattletales on Simon, and Negan beats him to death in a public fight. While everyone is distracted, Dwight busts Gregory out of the complex, sending him with Negan's war plans to deliver to Rick. This guy's like a quintuple agent at this point? Something like that. But being a super spy only works for so long, and Dwight finally gets caught. The plans that Dwight delivered are fake, and will lead Rick and the others directly into the line of fire. Negan doesn't kill Dwight, saying that he has plans for him. After that, Michonne contacts Negan via walkie-talkie and reads Carl's letter to him. Negan does not like the letter and reiterates his plans to destroy them. Okay, was that really necessary? Now for the Season 8 finale. Negan is getting target practice before the war. That is the worst Rick target I've ever seen. There's no head, there's no beard. It's just pure laziness, Negan. Rick and the others, meanwhile, follow the plans that Dwight gave them and are led right into a trap. Negan and his army appear on the hill, counting down from 3 to fire. Oh crap, Eugene made faulty ammo. He was an undercover agent the whole time. Damn! Gabriel and Dwight get a good Negan punch in too. The Oceanside ladies blow up the saviors with Molotov cocktails, and any saviors that aren't dead surrender. After that, Rick chases Negan and they all duke it out. Finally! Am I right? Rick uses a shard of glass to slit Negan's throat before changing his mind and saving his life and tossing him in jail. Classic main character kind of stuff. After that, Morgan leaves the show for good, opting to be on Fear the Walking Dead instead. Again, feel free to comment and let us know if you want us to cover that, because that could be fun. As the episode ends, Maggie has a private meeting with Jesus and Daryl, who think that Rick and Michonne made a mistake keeping Negan alive. And now, they want to plot their own revenge. Next, we're going to see what happens in Season 9. It's been 18 months since Negan was defeated, and the communities are trying to work together to rebuild something resembling a society. Rick and Michonne are in charge of Alexandria and raising Judith, all while Carol and Ezekiel are in love and are running the kingdom. Daryl and Eugene, meanwhile, are running the Savior Sanctuary, but their ground is infertile, so it makes it hard to grow food. Daryl hates his new job and tells Rick about it. Carol overhears this and wants an excuse to not marry Ezekiel, so she offers to take the place off his hands.
I don't know. I want to help out. Take my time, you know?
Taking extra work shifts to avoid a difficult conversation with your partner? Society is back, baby! While all this is going on, Maggie is still leading Hilltop after officially defeating Gregory in an election. After a young man gets bit by a walker on a supply mission gone wrong, his father is persuaded by Gregory to assassinate Maggie. When he fails, Gregory gives it a shot himself, and he also fails. Maggie then publicly hangs Gregory for his sins. Democracy and rule of law be damned.
Not Constitution.
Charter.
Okay.
In the next episode, it's been a month since Gregory's death, and the communities are working together to repair a bridge, but the inter-community politics are making things complicated.
First time we've had to deal with something like this.
It might be time then to start talking about making some rules.
Maggie, I think Earl probably learned his lesson. We watched you hang your political rival. The Saviors are hungry and are getting restless, with several of them walking off the job. One of the sanctuary workers, Justin, fails to sound an alarm, leading to a horde attacking the bridge crew. In the chaos, Aaron's arm gets smushed by a log and has to be amputated. So as a result, Justin is kicked out of the camp, and on his way back to the sanctuary, he gets abducted. Yikes. Jardis, whose real name is Anne, apparently, starts kissing Gabriel, and she sees a helicopter again. As the episode ends, Rick tells Negan all about his long day at work. Negan doesn't care at all.
When do I get to see it? Never. You can die behind these bars.
In episode 3, we learn that Justin, the sanctuary worker, was murdered, and word gets around town really fast. Another savior, Eret, goes missing as well, and Rick decides to put on his metaphorical detective hat yet again to investigate. On Rick's request, Gabriel asks Anne if she saw anything, and she doesn't tell him about the helicopter. Seems pretty suspicious if you ask me. Gabriel seems to agree with me because he follows Anne to the junkyard, where he deduces that she's been trading people to her helicopter friends for supplies. Yikes! Anne asks him to leave with her, but Gabriel plans to tell Rick, so Anne dumps him. I mean, I assume that's the end of their relationship. While that's happening, Daryl and Maggie find out that the members of Oceanside have been capturing and killing the Saviors as revenge for killing all of their men, including Cindy's 11-year-old brother. Cindy says it was even Maggie's hanging of Gregory that inspired her. Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, Mags. And now both Maggie and Daryl are not really feeling Rick's rules anymore. I bet Negan just loves visitors. Let's see what happens next in episode 4. Maggie and Daryl are conspiring with the Oceanside group to assassinate Negan. Jesus, ever the man of peace, warns Rick about these plans, so he gets ready to go to Alexandria. Daryl offers to drive him on his motorcycle, but he purposefully misses the turnoff.
That was the way back there.
Worst Uber driver ever, dude. No stars at all. The two guys then get in a fist fight and wind up in a pit, but soon they talk about their feelings and help each other get out. Michonne wants to visit Negan too after learning about his hunger strike. He says he'll eat if she chit-chats with them for a bit. Guess Rick's brags about work aren't great conversation. Later, the Saviors riot at the construction site and gunfire breaks out, drawing two huge hordes of walkers to him. Rick hops on a horse to lead the walkers away, but the horse gets spooked and bucks him off. Rick gets impaled by a piece of rebar, and his horse just kind of walks off, super chill-like. In the next episode, Rick miraculously pulls himself off the rebar and finds his horse again. He patches himself up in an abandoned cabin and fades in and out of consciousness, having dreams about many of his dead friends, including Shane and Herschel. As this happens, Maggie goes to execute Negan, but changes her mind at the last minute when she sees he's super bummed and begs to be killed.
I should be dead.
Yeah, I guess that kind of takes the fun out of it. Rick leads the walkers to the bridge and blows it up to prevent the horde from reaching his friends. And he miraculously survives this as well, and is rescued by Anne, who has her helicopter friends pick them both up. 6 years later, Judith rescues a new group of survivors from walkers, and she still has her big brother's hat. In the next episode, we learn a bit about what we missed in the last few years. Remember, everyone else thinks Rick is dead. Judith brings her new friends, led by Magna, to Michonne so they can join the crew on their travels to Hilltop. While there, the council questions Magna's group. Michonne sees that Magna has a prison tattoo and a hidden knife, and they kick him out after she won't explain herself. Carol, who has long hair now, did end up marrying Ezekiel. Cute! Carol and Henry are also going to Hilltop to get Henry training as a blacksmith. They're attacked by saviors who tell them that their sanctuary has fallen, and they've become marauders to survive. Carol sets all the saviors on fire before rendezvousing with Daryl the next day. Judith is upset that Michonne didn't trust her judgment, so she talks to her prison buddy Negan about it while doing her math homework.
Do you think you ever will?
Probably not.
So what the hell difference does it make? See, math problems are supposed to apply to the real world. You want my help? Give me a question or a problem from right here, right now.
Way to crush your dreams, Negan. Eugene and Rosita are trying to escape a horde when they hear the walkers chit-chatting amongst themselves. Creepy. Speaking of Rosita, she and Gabriel are dating now. Kind of random if you ask me, but I'm happy for him though. In the next episode, Michonne decides to bring Magna's group to Hilltop, and instead of just kicking them to the curb, first they go to Magna's old camp so Luke can pick up his musical instruments.
What the hell's going on?
Dang, Michonne must really hate the sound of violin. Daryl leads Carol and Henry to his camp where they meet his dog, Dog. Daryl has spent the last 6 years searching for Rick's body, so he's been too busy to come up with a better name than Dog, and he agrees to escort Carol and Henry to Hilltop. Maggie and her son Herschel have left Hilltop to join Georgie's group, leaving Jesus, Aaron, and Aaron's dope prosthetic arm in charge.
The given when no one runs against you.
You should at least pretend to be happy.
Thank you, Tara.
Well, sure, after the last election, Maggie killed her opponent. Aaron and Jesus see a flare go off nearby and find Rosita needing help, but Eugene is missing. Everyone makes it to Hilltop, and Daryl, Jesus, and Aaron head off again to find Eugene. On to the next episode. Henry starts his blacksmith training, but gets super depressed when he sees his crush, Enid, is dating Alden. He meets up with a group of teenagers and gets drunk about it. This gets Henry in trouble with Tara and his new boss, Earl. Michonne brings Magna's group to Hilltop, where Tara tells them they can stay. That phrase is usually not a good sign in this world. Gabriel was put on prison babysitting duty and accidentally left Negan's cell door unlocked, so Negan just kind of walks out. Pretty anticlimactic if you ask me. Daryl, Jesus, and Aaron track down Eugene, who's hidden under the floorboards of a barn. Eugene tells them that the walkers they were running from were whispering to each other, and he's worried that they've evolved into something intelligent. The horde is approaching the barn, so they have to evacuate. Getting trapped in a cemetery, Jesus is stabbed by a walker. Wait, what? Daryl examines the killer, revealing that it's actually a living human wearing a mask made out of walker skin. More like The Walking Alive, am I right? Let's kick off the second half of this season. Michonne and the others capture one of the fake walkers and bring her back to Hilltop. They can't get much info out of her, but she tells Henry that her name is Lydia. The group that Lydia's mother leads is known as the Whisperers, and they live amongst the walkers. I gotta say, that's a way more effective strategy than covering yourself in blood and guts. Judith catches Negan trying to escape Alexandria and threatens to shoot him, but she decides to let him go, and she lets him take her compass. That is the cutest child holding a gun I have ever seen. When Negan reaches the sanctuary, he finds it abandoned, realizing that there's nothing out there for him. Negan goes back to his jail cell, but he does get a sick new ride from his field trip. Rosita tells Sadiq that she's pregnant and she thinks it's his baby. Eugene overhears the conversation and he's sad because he's had a crush on her, even though he knows she's with Gabriel. Dang, Rosita. She's basically the prom queen around here. To wrap up the episode, Alden and Luke are lured into a trap and they end up captured by the Whisperers. In the next episode, Lydia and Henry bond while they're both in their respective jail cells. Goodness gracious, how long are you gonna lock a kid up for underage drinking? Daryl tells Henry that he's giving Lydia way too much information.
See what she'd say to you.
You were using me.
Yeah, and it was working too.
Ah, okay, that's mean. But it makes more sense than a multi-day sentence for getting drunk. Henry busts his new crush out of jail, and he shows her around Hilltop, and they eat worms together. Lydia has a panic attack when she hears a baby crying and asks to be returned to her cell, where Henry stays with her overnight. Does it count as a first date if you're eating worms? Maybe if they would have Lady and the Tramped it like a spaghetti noodle. The Whisperers approach Hilltop. Their leader, Alpha, appears unmasked and demands the return of her daughter. This episode starts with a flashback where Tara and Jesus present the community charter to Ezekiel and Carol. Maggie and Michonne are still fighting, so no one has signed it yet. Back in the present, Daryl and Alpha arrange a hostage exchange, trading Lydia for Alden and Luke. Daryl goes to retrieve Lydia, but she's escaped with Henry. Henry tries to convince her to stay, but she leaves of her own volition, thinking her mom must be sorry if she broke her rules to show up.
Okay.
Dang it, Henry, you should have told her that you were a prince. Lydia returns to Alpha and apologizes.
You call me Alpha. I call the rest.
Yes, Alpha.
Yeesh. Henry isn't happy how this went down and escapes Hilltop to find her. Daryl sets off with Connie to find him. In the next episode, Henry finds Lydia, but is captured by Alpha's second-in-command, appropriately named Beta. Michonne, meanwhile, is having her own rough day in Alexandria. She's fighting with the council, as she doesn't want the town to participate in the community fair. Way to be a fun killer, Michonne. Judith tells her mom that she's been talking to Negan. Michonne is not happy about this at all.
You did?
Go to your room.
Ouch, Judith, right in the heart. Michonne decides to stop being a buzzkill to everybody's fun and let Alexandria participate in the fair, even though she thinks it's a bad idea. The Whisperers have been whispering amongst themselves about Alpha's leadership abilities. They aren't happy with the 2-for-1 deal that she negotiated. 2 Whisperers approach Alpha to discuss this, but the situation is quickly resolved when she brutally kills them both. Okay, I promise not to make any more jokes about Maggie and Gregory. I am sorry. Beta takes Henry to Alpha and Lydia. Alpha tells her daughter that if she doesn't kill Henry, Beta will kill them both. A small horde of walkers shows up just in time, giving Connie and Daryl an opportunity to rescue Lydia and Henry before getting the heck out of there. On to the next episode of Season 9. Daryl, Connie, Henry, Lydia, and Dog make their escape from the Whisperer camp. Connie leads them to a high-rise to take temporary shelter, and the gang argues over whether or not they should bring Lydia back to Hilltop. Beta's search group is about to arrive, so Daryl locks Lydia in a closet with Dog. The Kingdom prepares for the fair when Jerry and his scout group show up, saying they got robbed by a group called the Highwaymen. Ezekiel, Carol, and a few others lure the Highwaymen into a trap. Ezekiel offers them to keep the road safe in exchange for access to the trade market. They aren't really interested at first, but Carol makes them an offer that they can't refuse.
A movie.
Seriously?
Daryl and Connie take out some of Beta's walkers. Lydia, seeing that a Whisperer is about to kill Henry, busts out of the closet, and Dog saves Henry. Good dog, Dog. Daryl and Beta fight one-on-one. Daryl pushes him into an open elevator shaft, and our heroes escape, not realizing that Beta is still alive. Time for a flashback episode. Michonne is very pregnant with her and Rick's son, RJ. In the immediate aftermath of his apparent death in Alexandria, a group of strangers arrive. Michonne sees an old college friend, Jocelyn, amongst them and vouches for them. Jocelyn is traveling with a group of children, and Alexandria provides them with medical attention and even have a nice bonfire that night. The next morning, Jocelyn and the kids are gone. They've stolen the town's food and medical supplies and kidnapped their children. Michonne and Daryl track them down, but are lured into a trap. Jocelyn has brainwashed the kids and turned them into little psychos. Dang, and my parents wouldn't even let me play with matches. Daryl and Michonne are able to break out. Michonne kills Jocelyn and tells the kids that they can return to Alexandria, but they attack, forcing her to kill them one by one. Michonne and Daryl return to Alexandria with the town children, but Michonne refuses to let in strangers going forward, breaking down relationships with the other communities. Back in present day, Michonne, having relayed this story to Judith, has a change of heart and agrees to escort Daryl and the others to the Kingdom. Nearby, a pair of Whisperers are watching. Damn, I hate those masks. In the next episode, it's time for the super fun community fair. Michonne brings the town leadership together to sign the charter, vowing that together they can fight the Whisperers. Lydia is granted asylum in the Kingdom, meaning that Prince Henry just scored himself a girlfriend. I'm not crying, you're crying. That night, Daryl, Carol, Michonne, and Yumiko are attacked by walkers before they're surrounded by Beta and a group of Whisperers who take them captive. Alpha is at the fair wearing the scalp and hat of a woman she murdered to gather information at movie night. Lydia is saving a seat for Henry when her mother sits down next to her instead. Alpha tries to make Lydia come with her, but she refuses and sends her away. You know what's way scarier than a zombie? Standing up to your mom. At dawn, Alpha shows Daryl the massive walker horde and threatens to release it on communities if their border is crossed. Daryl, Carol, Michonne, and Yumiko are released. On their way back to the kingdom, they find Sadiq beaten and bloody and tied to a tree. He shows them the border at a nearby hill, where they're horrified to find the severed heads of Enid, Tara, Henry, and others on pikes. And now, let's dive into the Season 9 finale! It's been several months since the massacre, and the kingdom has fallen due to burst pipes, rot, and failing infrastructure. Ezekiel leads a caravan of survivors to Hilltop with Daryl, Michonne, and Yumiko. With the coming winter storm, Michonne leads the group to the abandoned sanctuary, but they don't have enough supplies to wait it out. They review the maps and decide their best course of action is to cut through the Whisperer territory. And Lydia thinks this whole situation, including Henry's death, is her fault, and asks Carol to kill her. Luckily for Lydia, Carol has never met a kid she doesn't like.
Go. Come on.
Okay. Now I am actually crying. In Alexandria, the storm has taken out the town power. Gabriel gets Negan out of his cell so he doesn't freeze to death. The town residents move to Aaron's house. Judith hears dog barking and chases after him, leading Negan to chase after her. He gets a bad leg injury, but continues on finding both Dog and Judith and bringing them back home safely.
You know, I know why you're doing this. You're just trying to get a little extra Negan time, aren't you? I tell you something, kid.
Damn it! I'm crying again. Ezekiel's group makes it back to Hilltop safely. Carol breaks up with Ezekiel and leaves for Alexandria with Daryl and Lydia the next day. Michonne thanks Negan for doing her a solid by saving her kid's life. Oh, by the way, Eugene has been working really hard on a radio all season long. A woman's voice comes through asking if anyone can hear her. Time to kick off Season 10. Winter is over and there are no signs of the Whisperers, so things have been pretty quiet around here. Too quiet. Michonne and Daryl are worried that they'll come back, so they ask everyone to pretty please respect the boundary that the Whisperers made. They remove the heads, though. The communities are training an army in Oceanside to fight walkers when they find a Whisperer mask washed ashore and everyone starts freaking out.
River must have carried it down.
What does it mean? Are they back?
We don't know.
I don't know, it might look nice on a sandcastle, Judith, but then fireballs start raining from the sky, and everyone gets even more freaked out. It turns out to be an old satellite from the Soviet Union, and they have to cross into the Whisperer's boundaries to put the fire out. On the bright side, Eugene got some cool new tech parts. Carol gets into a staring contest with Alpha. Yeah, you're welcome for putting the fire out, you crazy lady. In this episode, we learn how Alpha met her beta, and I'm going out on a limb and guess that it's just a nickname. Alpha and Lydia met Beta early on in the Apocalypse journey. He was gonna kill them until he realized they're both weirdly into the walkers.
Crossed. You must teach them a lesson. And the pack will watch. We're going back.
You know what, you gotta get yourself a friend that would wear your face as a mask after you die. Back in the present day, a Whisperer named Francis is really sad because Connie stole her baby last season. Francis attacks Alpha over it. Francis's sister Mary must not have liked her nephew that much because she pushes Francis into the horde to save Alpha. Alpha is impressed with the sisterly sacrifice and gives Mary a new nickname. Say what you want about these guys, but I do appreciate a theme. Alpha told her pack that she killed Lydia, but obviously she didn't. She also built a shrine for Lydia and then destroys it in a rage when Beta finds it. In the next episode, waves and waves of walkers flood into Alexandria over a 48-hour period. Exhausting their fighting forces, Gamma swings by to tell them that Alpha wants a meeting, so Michonne, Daryl, and Carol go to talk to her. Alpha tells them that she knows they've been firefighting in their territory and wants more land from them as punishment. Carol tries to end the conversation by just shooting her, but Michonne knocks the gun out of her hand. In response, Alpha sicks both of her alive and dead friends on the trio. Daryl, Michonne, and Carol take shelter in a school to get away from the walkers and Whisperers. Daryl finds out that Carol has been taking speed pills to stop her from dreaming about Henry's death, and now she's hallucinating. The three pals kill off a bunch of walkers and a fleeing Whisperer before returning to Alexandria. Then the dead Whisperer reanimates as a walker. Double masking? This is like COVID all over again. Aaron and Negan are tasked with taking down a horde coming in from the south, and they get into an argument about their dead loved ones. Negan gains his trust after he saves him from infected all night after Aaron got blinded by hogweed. On to the next episode. A tree falls on a fence line at Hilltop, and walkers start to invade. Word spreads to Alexandria, and Lydia starts getting harassed over it, so she confides in Negan.
Trying to get a reaction out of you. They want to see you upset. Don't give that to them.
Look who's got a new philosophy on life. One night, Lydia's cornered and attacked. Negan pulls Margot off Lydia, accidentally throwing her into a wall and cracking her skull open, which kills her. Michonne stops Ezekiel from killing himself by jumping off a cliff, and he gives her quite the thank you. Michonne isn't interested, probably because she knows she's leaving soon to film the Black Panther sequel. The council's voting on if Negan should be kicked out or not. Gabriel is the tiebreaker vote and needs time to think super hard about it. While he's thinking, Negan decides to skip town. I guess no good deed goes unpunished, Negan. In the next episode, Negan is getting some distance from Alexandria when he realizes he's being followed by a young man named Brandon, the son of a former savior and the president of Negan's fan club. And he's really obnoxious. Way worse than prison. Ezekiel is diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Siddiq tries to get in touch with Carol for him, but he just shuts off the radio. Negan saves a mother and a son from a bunch of walkers. Brandon is annoying the bejesus out of Negan and makes him go away. Negan tells the mom and son that he'll escort them to Hilltop, but when he comes back from collecting firewood, he sees that Brandon has murdered them both. Infuriated by the senseless murder, Negan beats Brandon to death with a rock. Incredible work, Negan. Absolute cinema. I've just got one small note. You should have let him suffer. Negan crosses into Whisperer territory and starts killing walkers, and soon he's caught by Beta. In the next episode, Carol and Daryl are on a mission to find Alpha's walker horde, and Carol captures a Whisperer. Meanwhile, an infection is running through Alexandria, caused by Gamma bloodletting walkers into the water supply. But in more fun news, Eugene makes a new friend on the radio.
My given name is Eugene Erman Porter. And I propose we continue these convos on the reg with the hopes of building more. Should that meet with your approval and/or interest, of course.
Really cool nickname, my guy. Finally, it's Negan's turn to do the annoying again.
I never properly introduced myself. Hey, I'm Negan.
That's his kind of thing, Beta. It'll grow on ya. Beta takes Negan to Alpha, who wants to test their new captive. Beta is not impressed, and later leaves him to fend for himself in a walker horde before telling Alpha he's dead. But we all know Negan can handle a few walkers. He comes back to the Whisperers and submits to Alpha. In the next episode, Carol is stoked to interrogate their new captive, but Gabriel is being a buzzkill and makes her take the Whisperer to get medical treatment first. Lydia suggests showing the Whisperer how awesome Alexandria is. Since already well versed in misery and torture, Carol brings him some sandwiches, but that doesn't work, so she doesn't try anything else. So they decide to torture him instead. Shocker. But the Whisperer lets slip that they think Lydia is dead, and Carol realizes they can use that. But before they return, the prisoner dies in his cell. Late that night, Carol brings Lydia to meet with Aaron, who's been having regular chats with Gamma. Gamma is shocked to see that Lydia is alive, because it means Alpha lied to her and she killed her sister for nothing. Lydia is not happy that Carol used her as a pawn and runs off. Okay, fine, but you're gonna draw your own borders. No heads on pikes, please. Siddiq has been suffering from PTSD flashbacks all season and has a rough day. The Newtown doctor, Dante, tries to cheer him up, but his tongue click triggers another flashback, making Siddiq realize that Dante was one of the Whisperers at the beheading. Unfortunately, Dante strangles him before Siddiq can do anything about it. In the next episode, we learn all about the shenanigans Dante got up to besides pretending to have medical training. He sabotaged the town's water supply, killed a nice old lady named Cheryl, and is the one who painted the "Silence the Whisperers" graffiti, purposefully inflaming tensions in the town. Rosita goes to visit Siddiq, but Dante attacks, so she beats him unconscious and has to finish off the reanimated Siddiq. Gabriel visits Dante in his cell and finally snaps. Honestly, I can't believe it took him this long. Gamma, now disillusioned with her life of wearing decomposed human skin, trades intel to Aaron in exchange for visits from her baby nephew. Michonne, Luke, and Judith go on a quick side quest to Oceanside when they meet a man named Virgil. Luke vouches for him, and later Michonne offers to take him and his family on a military base in exchange for weapons to fight Alpha's horde. But she can stay in touch using walkie-talkies. Honestly, Judith can probably take your place on the front lines, Michonne. She's real hardcore. While Daryl and Carol are leading a group to find the horde, Carol spots Alpha and chases her down. Now, all of her friends are stuck in a cave surrounded by walkers. You gotta think before you act, Carol. Come on. In episode 9, Daryl is very mad at Carol for leading them all into a trap, which is fair. The gang kills some whisperers and some walkers, and then are fortunate to find some handy-dandy dynamite. But Carol blows it up again. Literally, and accidentally causes the cave to collapse. Everyone squeezes out to safety through a small hole, no thanks to Carol. Alpha has a team huddle with Beta and Gamma and tells them she's worried that the enemy is spying on them. Gamma has the world's worst poker face, but luckily Alpha was obviously not a detective before the apocalypse went down.
I want you to take a message to our eyes along the border. They have failed.
Wrong person to ask that favor from, Alpha. Wrong person to ask. Negan tells Alpha that he doesn't think there's a spy, but rather a mole, and he thinks it's Gamma. Alpha isn't very appreciative at first and takes a knife to his crotch, but she's still persuaded by the end of the episode and gives Negan a reward. Listen, if I had to see it, you do too. Are you back from washing your eyes out with bleach? Good, perfect, because we're back on to the series and we're on the next episode. Gamma shows up in Alexandria to tell them that their friends are trapped in a cave with the horde. Our heroes aren't in a very trusting mood, but feel differently after Rosita punches her, and Gabriel gets her to admit she killed her sister in service of Alpha.
She didn't even have to ask. I just did it.
Hit him where it really hurts. The emotional pain. Daryl tracks down Alpha by himself in the woods, and they go head to head. After some punchy, stabby action, they are both severely injured and stumble into a gas station, where Alpha leads walkers to Daryl. He yanks the knife out of his leg to kill them and loses a ton of blood before passing out. While Gabriel and the other soldiers are out of town following Gamma's directions, Beta rises from a grave, murdering citizens in their homes and leaving them to turn into walkers and attack. Beta breaks Gamma out of her cell, but she won't leave with him.
Step towards me.
The expression is, "You're dead to me," and you're using it wrong. Gamma eventually surrenders, threatening to kill herself if Beta hurts anyone. That won't work since Alpha wants her alive, so he agrees to her terms. On their way back to the Whisperers, they run into Gabriel and the others, and Beta bails on Gamma to scamper into the woods. Alpha appears to secretly thank Daryl for causing her pain, but she's less grateful when he accuses her of not loving Lydia. Speaking of Lydia, she finds them both, and Alpha asks her daughter to kill her and replace her as the leader. That's kind of a big ask, so Lydia saves Daryl's life instead. Way less pressure. In the next episode, Lydia tells Hilltop that they need to prepare for war, but on the bright side, we get to hear from Eugene's radio bestie again, who reveals her name to be Stephanie. They're planning to meet, and he's all giggly about it.
You there?
Yes, I will be there. Not square. A Staterbug, over and out.
Oh, dang right you do, buddy. Ezekiel hears what's happened at the cave and tracks Carol down to comfort her. She sees the tumor on his neck and they decide to get it on. I mean, sure, I guess if you're worried that you're about to die in a zombie war, might as well.
If we didn't think we were gonna die tonight.
Wait, we're gonna die tonight?
It's a dark joke, Carol, but I laughed. Negan tells Alpha that he thinks killing all of Hilltop is overkill and thinks that she should just get them to bend the knee instead. Lydia has given the town a heads up about the attack, but the roads are blocked off before any citizens can evacuate, leaving them no choice but to reinforce the perimeter. The fight begins, but the Whisperers had a cheat code for fire arrows, so they burn down Hilltop. Negan, meanwhile, is now just learning about the team he joined.
They will. Part of my horde.
Holy shit. You are bad.
Cool. Let's get into the next episode. Hilltop is burning to the ground, and the survivors scatter while walkers and whisperers overrun the place. Gamma, who, reminder, is really named Mary, lures a group of walkers away from her new friends before she's killed by Beta. Sad, but at least she got to hold her own nephew before she died. Earl was bit by a walker and tries to kill himself by driving a stake into his head so a kid doesn't have to do it. But he misses, and Judith has to do it anyway. It really is sad.
Come on.
Can I get a hug from Uncle Daryl too? In the next morning, Negan runs into Lydia in the woods and captures her, tying her up in a cabin. Negan tries to talk Alpha out of murdering her own kid, but to no avail. When they get to the cabin, Lydia isn't there. Negan does us all a solid by slicing that psycho lady's head off, and delivering it to Carol, who tells Negan it took him long enough. In the next episode, we see what Michonne's been up to. She arrives at the naval base with Virgil, but bad news, the guy is totally insane. Virgil locks Michonne up and then drugs her, giving her wild hallucinations of what her life would have been if she had joined Negan at the Saviors. When Michonne comes to, she attacks Virgil and finds evidence that Rick may be alive, including his boots, an artistically carved up cell phone, and a logbook indicating that he might be in New Jersey. On her way back to the mainland, Michonne hits up Judith with a walkie-talkie, who is like, no mom, don't come home. Please go look for my long-lost father.
You have to go. You have to.
Yeah, for real, you can't bring that up and then just not go. In episode 14, Carol slaps Alpha's head right on a pipe. She's really annoyed with how long it took Negan to finish the job and says she needs some alone time before vouching for him with the community. While she's alone, she keeps having hallucinations of Alpha. Eugene is off on his date with Stephanie. Ezekiel and Yumiko insist on going with them as chaperones on the journey. The trio gets to the city and finds a bunch of restrained walkers dressed up and positioned in funny scenarios, dining in rocking chairs and so on. They meet a colorful looking gal who's really excited to see them. She seems fun. Beta takes his former boss's head to his former home in a nearby town, destroying much of it in rage. He used to perform as a country music singer named Half Moon and starts listening to his own music, luring the walkers to him in a huge horde. He rips off Alpha's skin from her head and patches up his own mask, which, to be fair, really needed updating. Negan goes to pick up Lydia, who's already escaped from her bindings. She punches him and Daryl interrogates him. Negan tries to explain the situation, but they obviously don't believe him, so he leads them to her head. But the head is gone. Whisperers arrive at the stake and start hyping Negan up, assuming he's the new Alpha. Wrong assumption, my friends. In episode 15, the fun pink jacket girl introduces herself as Princess. Ezekiel has already taken a shine to her thanks to her silly art displays. A group of walkers interrupts them. Princess blasts them up, but she scares away their horses. Not to worry, their new friend assures them that she can get them some wheels. Unfortunately, Princess wants to take them the long way through a minefield, and failed to mention by wheels she meant bicycles.
Well, you know the area, so.
Aw, come on, Yumiko. Can we keep her? Please, can we keep her? Lydia is kind of mad at Negan, and kind of not, since he killed her crazy mom. He lets Lydia punch him and scream at him before giving her a hug just to be safe. Beta, meanwhile, has arrived at Alexandria with the Horde, but no one is there. The residents have evacuated to a nearby hospital known as the Tower. Beta is hearing voices in his head, and he spots a kitty cat and follows it to the hospital with his horde. This next episode was the original season 10 finale, so let's get right into it. The hospital is surrounded by zombies. Daryl and a few others sneak through the horde to lure it away with a wagon full of loud music. Maggie is back, and she got Carol's letters. It wasn't just a long trip. Maggie is traveling with a masked stranger who helps her rescue Gabriel, Aaron, and Alden from the Whisperers and Walkers that made it into the hospital. Outside, the Whisperers destroy Daryl's 6 sound system, forcing them to kill off the bad guys, one by one. Beta gets his butt kicked by Daryl and Negan before becoming a Walker dinner.
Shit. You know who that asshole was?
Yeah, nobody.
Yeah, but have you heard his country music album? Eugene and his pals are traveling to his date with Stephanie when they're captured by stormtroopers. I mean, armed soldiers. And Virgil traveled back to the mainland, which feels like it's going to be important later. Lydia and Carol lead the horde off a cliff, which you have to admit is very silly to watch. Whee! The next 6 episodes are bonus episodes that were filmed during the COVID-19 pandemic and were originally unplanned. hence the phrase bonus episodes. I guess even a global catastrophe can have a silver lining. This episode focuses on Maggie. As you can imagine, she's not too thrilled to see the guy who brutally murdered her husband hanging out with all of her friends. She's been traveling with Elijah and Cole after their village was destroyed by a group called the Reapers. Then she learns that Hilltop burned to the ground, making her day even worse. Carol decides that now is a great time to tell Maggie that she let Negan out to get his help fighting the Whisperers. Way to read the room, Carol. The newly assembled gang takes shelter in a shipping container for the night. Maggie tells Daryl that she doesn't super want to live in Alexandria with her son when their next door neighbor would be the guy that killed his dad. The gang gets attacked by more Reapers and loses Herschel for a second, but he's fine. Yep, just hanging out in a tree, being cute. With nowhere else to go, Maggie, Herschel, Daryl, and the others return to Alexandria. Carol and Daryl go on a hunting trip in the woods and find an old cabin that has some sentimental value for Mr. Dixon. You know what that means? Flashback time! 5 years ago, Daryl was approached by a super cute puppy in the woods. Months later, the puppy becomes a dog and leads Daryl to a cabin, where he's attacked by a woman who ties him up and interrogates him. She lets him go, seemingly because her dog liked him. Daryl returns her dog every time he runs off. Eventually, the woman reveals her dog's name to be Dog, and her name to be Leah. Over an incredibly slow process, Daryl gets himself a girlfriend, which is funny. I always figured he was dating his motorcycle. Leah and Daryl get into an argument because he keeps leaving her to search for Rick and check up on Alexandria. Daryl leaves and returns sometime later to find that Leah has taken her things and left. Daryl leaves her a note in the floorboards asking her to be with him. Back in the present, Carol is trying to comfort him, and Daryl lashes out at her. They have a friendship breakup and go their separate ways. In the next episode, Gabriel and Aaron are on a supply run and crash in an abandoned warehouse for the night. Aaron gets tied up by a guy named Maze, who says that this is his warehouse, and they have been drinking his whiskey. Before he and Aaron can leave, he wants to play a round of Russian roulette. Maze gives a long speech about how all people are selfish and bad, including his brother who stole his food one time and tried to kill him. Gabriel and Aaron plead with Maze, promising that they are good and will help him. But Gabriel is a full-on liar and kills him the second he has the chance. I'm voting for not good here. Gabriel and Aaron find May's brother tied up in the attic and release him, but he commits suicide. Downer episode overall. In this episode, we catch up with Eugene, Ezekiel, Yumiko, and Princess, who have been captured and locked up in separate boxcars. Way to follow COVID protocols, gang. Princess is trying to bust herself out, but gets a splinter, and her PTSD is triggered. She busts herself out of her boxcar, and she flees. After she sees Yumiko is missing and tries to bust Eugene out next. Eugene is laser focused on impressing Stephanie's friends and doesn't want to make the soldiers mad. One of the soldiers interrogates Princess, but she refuses to cooperate. The soldier knocks her out, and when she wakes up, Eugene is gone too. Ezekiel, who does not feel like following COVID protocols at all, hops in Princess's boxcar through a hatch in the roof. A soldier brings in a tray of food, and Ezekiel decks him. The soldier assures them that they're good people, but Ezekiel uncharacteristically starts to beat him senselessly.
Please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. So Princess was hallucinating Ezekiel, but continues to argue with the fake version of him. Eventually, she returns to her boxcar and releases the soldier and answers all of their questions. Finally, and she's reunited with the others, who now have scary hoods over their heads. In the next episode, Carol, Daryl, and Dog hit a fork in the road. Carol heads back to Alexandria while Daryl stays in the woods. Dog follows Carol, which kind of hurts Daryl's feelings. Daryl's motorcycle keeps breaking down, so he swipes some parts from some abandoned cars to fix it. Except he just lent Carol his pocket knife, so he has to find a new one. In Alexandria, Carol asks Jerry for something to do, but he doesn't really have much. She tries to make some soup, but this stupid freaking rat is bothering Dog. It's also bothering Carol, if you couldn't really tell. In the next morning, Jerry asks if Carol is okay because, you know, the wall. Carol says she's worried about Ezekiel, and they hug, and the rat runs out. Thank goodness. Daryl drives back into town on his fixed-up motorcycle, and Carol offers him some soup. He turns her down, and they go their separate ways yet again. In this episode, we learn about Negan's backstory. It's about dang time. In Alexandria, things have been pretty tense between Maggie and Negan, so Carol brings him out to Leah's cabin, and Negan digs up his old bat, Lucille, and reflects on his past. Negan was a deadbeat husband to his wife, Lucille, not the bat, before the apocalypse. He lost his job as a high school gym teacher after getting an assault charge. Negan is spending his days playing video games, racking up credit card debt, and worst of all, cheating on her with her best friend. Lucille is diagnosed with cancer right before the apocalypse, and Negan has been administering her treatment. When the world goes to hell, they fall back in love with each other. One night, while the generator is out, her medicine spoils. Lucille begs Negan to stay with her and just be with her until her death approaches. But he insists on getting it, wanting to save her life. He tracks down the medicine, but he's kidnapped by a biker gang. While Negan is away, Lucille kills herself. He sets their house on fire before beating the biker gang to death with his new baseball bat. The guy had it coming. Back in the present day, Negan kills a walker with his bat, splitting in half. He talks to his wife, apologizing to her and giving her a small memorial. He burns the bat and returns to Alexandria. And now, let's break down the final season of The Walking Dead. Alexandria is running dangerously low on food after the Whisperers destroyed the place last season. Maggie leads a team to her former camp, Meridian, for a shopping trip, and that team includes Negan, who she's still very mad at for brutally murdering Glenn. The gang gets trapped in a subway station and are attacked by walkers. Meanwhile, Eugene's first date with Stephanie is not going too well. He hasn't even met her yet. Eugene, Yumiko, Ezekiel, and Princess are brought to the Commonwealth, where they're asked judgy questions about where they attended college and what their zip codes used to be.
It's a benign growth. I've had it since childhood.
Where did you get the cash we found on you?
The $2 bill.
Tell us exactly where you got it.
So when I was 15, my first job was at Missy Moose's Pizzeria, you know.
You can skip to the end.
Okay, well, Eugene aced that second question. The gang is almost able to bust out of the compound, but Yumiko figures out that her brother lives there and decides to stay. Maggie continues to push the group through the tunnel before Negan gets super annoyed with her leadership abilities and accuses her of bringing him along to murder him and make it look like an accident. Maggie's like, "No man, I'm not gonna kill you, but I'm always thinking about it." Pretty terrifying if you ask me. Daryl and Dog get separated from Maggie, Negan, and the others. While Negan and Maggie are fleeing walkers, Negan lets her fall into a horde. Not gonna earn you any extra brownie points, my guy. But it would have to be really lame to kill Maggie off right there after she came back. So she escapes in the next episode and tells the others that he left her to die.
I have been a golden goddamn asset for every single one of you.
And a burning hilltop that helped, huh?
Do you think that helps your case, dude? Maggie and Negan call a temporary truce and escape the subway and meet back up with Daryl and Dog, and then they're attacked by Reapers. Yumiko uses her family connections and Harvard law training to demand expedited processing for her group. Even in the apocalypse, it's all about who you know. Eugene gets re-interviewed and has a breakdown, confessing he's just there to meet his radio crush, Stephanie. Head honcho of the military, Mercer, knows a guy who's down bad when he sees one, so Eugene and his pals are free to enter the Commonwealth.
Hi. I'm Stephanie.
I could not be rooting harder for Eugene if I tried. In the next episode, Team Maggie gets broken up while being pursued by the Reapers. Alden is too injured to continue on, so Negan and Maggie are going to have their bicker all the way back to safety.
Twice as many as before. We need to rethink your plan, Maggie.
You're a free man, Negan. You want to go. Go.
I can help you. You know, your friends, they trusted me. You were gone for a long time. Things change. People change.
No.
Negan, tell Maggie to watch your bonus episode. It definitely won me over. Alexandria is still starving, so Carol kills a horse to feed the community. Hardly the worst thing any of them have done to survive. On to episode 4 of the season. Dog ditches Daryl to hang out with a Reaper. Rude, but turns out the Reaper is Daryl's ex-girlfriend, Leah. Leah and the other Reapers take Daryl to their leader, a guy named Pope. I wonder if Pope would have liked Jesus. Pope agrees to let Daryl do a test to see if he can join their team. A group of former Afghanistan war veterans. Daryl passes, so he gets to hang out with his girlfriend again. Yay! Like pretty much every other leader in this world, Pope is a megalomaniac who thinks he and his besties were chosen by God. He's also more than happy to murder said besties, so maybe this arrangement is not so yay. In the next episode, we get to see what the deal is with the Commonwealth, and it's pretty sweet. The Commonwealth is an actual city of 50,000 people led by Governor Pamela Milton. Eugene, Ezekiel, Princess, and Yumiko are given housing and work assignments, despite them having no intention to live there. Yumiko's Harvard background gets her a special assignment as legal counsel for the governor. Fancy! Yumiko reunites with her brother, Tomi, at a bakery. Aw man, that cake looked really, really damn tasty. Eugene and Stephanie go on an ice cream date, and she offers to help him contact Alexandria on the radio. Princess distracts Mercer by flirting with him real hard, but it doesn't work for too long. Eugene, Princess, and Ezekiel are then put under arrest, but are quickly released by a Saul Goodman lookalike named Lance Hornsby. In this episode, we catch up with Connie, who has been missing since Carol's cave adventure early in season 10. The good news is that she and Virgil have been traveling together and keeping each other safe. The bad news is that they shelter in a mansion filled with, not zombies, but feral, cannibalistic human beings. Feral, yes, but still wearing jorts. Virgil and Connie defeat these terrifying individuals and escape, finally reuniting Connie with her sister Kelly. In the next episode, we check back with the Commonwealth. Eugene, Ezekiel, Princess, and Stephanie are sentenced to community service for breaking the law, so definitely could have been worse. And Ezekiel finally started getting medical care for his thyroid cancer. Eugene and Stephanie save Governor Milton's son, Sebastian, from a group of walkers, and he's very ungrateful. Eugene decks him, which he 100% deserved.
Yes, but...
What the hell are you thinking? Don't you know who that is?
No, man, you guys have been super cagey with introductions. Lance tells Eugene that they're going to be imprisoned if he doesn't give the location of Alexandria. Reluctantly, he obliges. Negan and Maggie make a deal. She promises to stop trying to kill him if he trains her to disguise herself against a walker, so they can lead a horde of walkers against the Reaper base, just to be safe. He makes her a promise in front of Father Gabriel. In the next episode, Pope directs his army against Maggie's team and their walker horde. Leah becomes disillusioned with his leadership due to his callousness with the lives of her friends. Daryl confesses that his buddies are in the crowd that they're about to kill and invites her to run away with him. They're interrupted by Pope, who is fired up and ready to do some killing, and he doesn't really care if he sacrifices a few Reapers in the process.
Where's the enemy now? God will protect them.
And what if he doesn't?
And it was their time to die.
Funny how when these people say something is God's will, they usually mean their own will. Leah does not like that answer, so she stabs him in the throat and is crowned the new queen of the Reapers. Leah is still upset about Daryl's betrayal, so he switches sides and fights with Maggie and the others. So I guess they've broken up again. It's okay, Daryl. A few good cries in the shower to your favorite Taylor Swift album will fix you right up. The next episode takes place right where the last one left off. After a lot of fighting and explosions, Daryl and the others capture a Reaper named Carver. Daryl promises to return him to the Reapers if they just cool their jets a little bit, give Meridian back to Maggie, and stop killing each other. For goodness sake. Leah agrees to the deal, but Maggie does not agree to the deal and kills off the rest of the Reapers. Leah escapes after a shot in the shoulder. A heads up would have been nice, Mags. Negan sees this and understandably decides to leave the group, thinking that he's next on the list of Maggie's tour of vengeance. Daryl, Maggie, and Gabriel return to Alexandria, which just had a rough time during a storm and a Walker Horde combo. A group of Commonwealth soldiers approach the gate with Eugene and Lance, who say they're here to help. 6 months later, Maggie is leading her own community again at the ruins of Hilltop.
Doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah, it does.
Stormtrooper Daryl? In the next episode, it's been a month since the Alexandrians joined the Commonwealth, and the town is getting ready to celebrate Halloween. Everyone has reverted to jobs they had before the world fell. Ezekiel is running a petting zoo, Connie is a reporter, and Carol has gone undercover again as a non-threatening cookie baker. Rosita and Daryl are in basic training to join the military, and they're both holed up in crappy apartments, with Rosita taking care of her daughter Coco, and Daryl taking care of Judith and RJ. Daryl also gets on the bad side of Sebastian. The class divide is wide and uncomfortable, as the Commonwealth deals with an old world style rule and US currency. Magna is even stuck serving wine at a fancy party that her girlfriend Yumiko is at. Daryl buys Judith a record player, and they listen to a very appropriate song by Motorhead called Eat the Rich. It looks like Rosita and Daryl aren't the only people unhappy with the state of affairs. On to the next episode. Eugene and Stephanie sitting in a tree. Kissing. Eugene tells his girlfriend that he loves her, and she says it back, but then she mysteriously disappears. Some people just aren't good with feelings, buddy. Princess is alarmed by Eugene's intense investigative work and tells Eugene he just got dumped. He doesn't like the answer, though. But turns out he was onto something. He finds Stephanie with Lance, and they reveal that Stephanie is not not real. She's a woman named Shira sent to uncover Alexandria's location from Eugene. Eugene is devastated and heartbroken, but soon he's approached by someone who knows their secret radio code. Stephanie was actually Governor Milton's assistant, Max. In the next episode, Max explains the whole situation to Eugene. She built a radio in secret using her mother's name, Stephanie, as a code name. Max's brother, Mercer, found the radio and forced her to halt communications and keep quiet. Eugene, hurt and overwhelmed, runs off. Meanwhile, Carol has arranged meetings with Milton and Lance at the coalition settlements of Hilltop, Alexandria, and Oceanside. Carol's efforts moved Ezekiel way up on the surgery list, so he's likely to beat his cancer. Milton isn't impressed with Alexandria, and Oceanside says they'll only begin working with the Commonwealth if Hilltop does too. Maggie, in typical Maggie fashion, is distrustful of the Commonwealth and criticizes the massive class divide in her community. She's also uncertain about what Lance gets out of the deal. After seeing Daryl get bossed around by Mercer, she decides to pass on Milton's offer, knowing that she'd be giving up the liberties of her people. A lot of the residents of Hilltop are frustrated with Maggie's choice and opt to go to Hilltop by themselves. Lance is not pleased with how this turned out.
Pamela's on board. In fact, we're gonna bring even more people in. Get ready, Aaron. We are going to remake the world.
Maggie was right not to trust him. Guy's got them crazy eyes. Eugene tracks down Max and brings her some ice cream. He apologizes for running off and for, not recognizing that Shira was a total stranger. They make amends and bond over his science fiction novel. Let's dive into episode 13. Aaron and Gabriel are sent on an outreach mission to recruit a religious community living in an apartment complex to join the Commonwealth. Their leader, Ian, is not so easily persuaded by ice cream. Ian is about to let them leave when Aaron's boss, Toby, starts shooting up the place. Turns out Lance sent Toby to wipe out the complex, believing they had raided a Commonwealth caravan. Gabriel and Aaron do not appreciate being lied to and begin attacking Commonwealth soldiers. They're put under arrest, but they're rescued by Negan, who has been living with the apartment complex crew. In the next episode, Gabriel, Aaron, and Negan are joined by Maggie and Lydia. They're introduced to Annie, Negan's new wife, who's pregnant with a baby on the way. Good for you, my dude. Negan sent a message to Maggie for help recruiting her friends. Lydia makes an astute observation about their circumstances.
No, it isn't. I hope that they might be, but they just want to swallow up other communities. They're like the Whisperers, they just wear different masks.
Negan,
I mean, is she wrong? Herschel wanted to come with his mom on a rescue mission, and he gets kidnapped by the Commonwealth. Negan rescues Herschel, but the kid can definitely hold his own. Herschel gets Negan to confess that he killed his dad before standing down. The others corner Toby and kill him, and it turns out Leah was the one who raided the caravan, so this trip was all for nothing. Sebastian and Daryl still aren't getting along.
How I handle myself with the rotters. Come on.
Oh, yeah. It's good stuff.
If you can't beat him, and you can't join him, you can always make fun of him. Sebastian tells Daryl and Rosita that his mommy cut off his line of credit, and he wants more money. So he strong-arms them into busting into a house and getting him some more cash. When they get into the house, Rosita and Daryl find out that Sebastian has sacrificed many desperate, indebted people to the cause of his personal piggy bank. They get the cash. Soon, Mercer and Carol come to their aid. Mercer kills 2 soldiers that were loyal to Sebastian because they conspired to send all those people into that house. He tells Rosita and Daryl to deliver the cash, fearing retribution if they don't. In the next episode, Lance questions Gabriel and Aaron about what the heck happened at the apartment complex. He then leads a group to Hilltop to question Maggie and absolutely grills her kid about it. Things get pretty tense, and Maggie makes him leave Hilltop. Herschel got a free hat though, and on his way back, Lance tracks down Leah with his stormtrooper squad and recruits her for a fun new job. Mercer and Princess have finally started hooking up. I bet no one else has ever been bold enough to hit on him, so good for you, Princess. Meanwhile, Rosita tells Eugene that the cash extravaganza that Sebastian sent her on, and he recruits Connie and Kelly to do some investigative journalism, and Max agrees to be Eugene's gal on the side. And Eugene gets to actually fall in love this time. Ezekiel is doing some sneaky business of his own, inspired by Carol. He opens an underground clinic with Tomy to help patients like him who were low on the list. Oh yeah, Tomy is a surgeon actually, so Yumiko made him leave leave the bakery, and now he's drinking under the pressure. In the next episode, Lance has given up on negotiating with Maggie and decides a plan to attack Hilltop. Maggie gets a heads up and sends Herschel in the care of Negan and Annie. Lance is in a really bad mood after his adventure to Hilltop, and has hired Leah to kill Maggie. He gives his soldiers orders to kill off Aaron, Daryl, and Gabriel as well, suspicious of their involvement in the events at the apartment complex. Guy is really going through something. Fortunately, Daryl and the gang are no strangers to an ambush, and take the soldiers out. Leah tracks Maggie down and knocks her out. She brings Maggie to the old cabin she lived in with Daryl, and ties her to a chair and holds her at gunpoint. Maggie breaks free, and the two get into a brutal fight. Leah is about to kill her, but Daryl arrives just in time to save Maggie. He has no choice but to kill Leah. Lance is not happy that Leah didn't complete the job, so he decides to colonize both Hilltop and Alexandria, and they kidnap Herschel. He brings his troops to Oceanside and takes the residents captive, leaving their fate to a coin flip. Then breaking news! Connie, Kelly, Max, and Eugene finished the article. Very direct. I like it. Let's get on to the next episode. Maggie, Daryl, Negan, and the others are debating on what to do as they hide from Lance and his soldiers. Realizing that he'd be a newbie in Commonwealth, the group sends Negan in as a spy. At the Commonwealth, a crowd of citizens is gathered outside of Governor Milton's office, protesting Sebastian's cash heist, which sacrificed poor citizens. Of course, she totally denies the allegations and issues a lockdown on the city. Negan reunites with Carol, and they track down Sebastian and deliver him to his mother.
You'll need to tell me more than that for me to save your ass.
I think we can help each other.
And who are you?
I work for Lance Hornsby. He's out there hunting my friends under your flag. I need your help to stop him.
I don't know anything about this, and I don't see how it helps me.
If your son didn't do the things that he's accused of, someone did.
Families are kind of complicated. In the next episode, the Lance versus Daryl standoff comes to an end when Mercer, Carol, Negan, and Milton arrive. Daryl really wants to kill Lance for attacking Hilltop and forcing him to kill his ex-girlfriend, but the others tell him to let Lance go. Daryl stabs him in the hand though, just for good measure. Milton announces to the citizens that Lance was the real culprit, not her son, though some of them are displeased and they don't buy it, including Max and Eugene. Max has a few drinks with Sebastian and records a conversation with him where he shares his incriminating political views, including that the citizens are total idiots. Soon, it's the Founders Day parade, and everyone is having a jolly good show, until Max and Eugene play the recording to the crowd.
There are no bootstraps to pull. Of course, my mom handpicks the lottery winners. And nothing matters. And nothing will ever change.
Stop that tape!
Hold on!
Go!
Yeah, they're just too stupid.
And as you can imagine, no one likes this at all. During the commotion, a few janitors, murdered by Lance's goons, have reanimated and are let loose. Sebastian chases down Max to feed her to the walkers, but she's heroically rescued by Eugene. Sebastian gets attacked and no one bothers to save him. I've got a feeling there's going to be an election here pretty soon. In the next episode, Eugene is on the run after the Founders Day incident. Since Milton blames him for her son's death and, for destroying her political reputation, Milton offers Mercer a pardon for his younger sister if he cooperates. Both Princess and Max would prefer he did not relentlessly hunt their pal Eugene, but Mercer is just trying to be a good big brother. Max gets arrested, so Eugene turns himself in. Eugene has become so brave. When Sebastian reanimates, Milton won't kill him. Instead, she has Lance kill one of his goons to feed her son the corpse. Good lord. Meanwhile, Aaron, Jerry, Lydia, and Lydia's new boyfriend Elijah travel towards Oceanside in hopes of settling a new kingdom, as it were. At night, they're attacked by what they think is a surviving Whisperer, but the reality is much worse. It's a very smart walker, capable of climbing, opening doors, and grabbing weapons. Oh, great. On to the next episode. Milton is now sending her goons after all of Eugene's friends. She says it's to ensure the trial is impartial, but she also wants Yumiko to be the prosecutor, so that's not true. Obviously, Milton threatens to harm Tomi if she doesn't comply. Daryl and Carol manage to escape Milton's goons and bust Lance out of his cell. He knows about all of the shady stuff that's happened in the Commonwealth, so he's likely to know where their friends are. Daryl has the honor of putting Sebastian out of his misery.
Always.
Even in death, this guy just does not know when to shut the heck up. Lance reveals that their friends are being used as slave labor on a project to extend the Commonwealth, and they can get there by train. But that was really a dumb thing to say because Carol and Daryl quickly assess that they can follow the railroad tracks and no longer need him. So Carol shoots him in the neck with an arrow. Before the trial, Yumiko makes a public announcement.
Announcing my intent to defend Eugene Porter, who has been wrongly and unjustly accused by Pamela Milton and the Commonwealth. We look forward to our day in court. Thank you very much.
Dang, this season of Law & Order has been wild. Episode 21 of this season is titled Outpost 22. Wait, seriously, you couldn't have just called it Outpost 21 for consistency and just like perfection and you missed that was just a missed opportunity, guys. Like that could have been really cool. Maggie, Gabriel, and Rosita escape and link up with Carol and Daryl. Negan and Ezekiel aren't quite so lucky and are brought to the labor camp. Connie is even less lucky and separated as Designation 2. Our heroes attack the train and get Connie out of there, but no one will say what Designation 2 means. The engineer commits suicide rather than answer the question. Bit of an overreaction there. Negan convinces Ezekiel to lead the slave revolt against the warden, and Outpost 22 is revealed to be Alexandria. Maggie tells the others that they're going to rescue their kids and take back their home.
And Pamela's never going to see it coming.
Darn right, Maggie. In the next episode, Aaron's group runs into Luke and his girlfriend, who tell them that Oceanside is no more. Since they're being hunted by the Commonwealth, they cover themselves in walker guts to travel with the Horde, and one of them picks up Lydia's knife. Back in the courtroom, Yumiko tries to stir up tension among the working class citizens watching the trial. Eugene gives a heartfelt speech about how a single person can change their corner of the world. Nevertheless, he is found guilty and sentenced to execution, but a single person was inspired, Mercer. Mercer breaks Eugene out with a few other soldiers who are secretly joining the revolution.
Time to up.
Dang it, that sounded so much cooler when it was uncensored. At the labor camp, Negan tells the warden that he's trying to lead a rebellion. Annie joins him, giving Ezekiel an opportunity to inspire the others to revolt. The warden instructs the soldiers to shoot them all, but then Daryl sneaks up and stabs him in the neck. Nice. Daryl, Carol, Maggie, and the others burst into Alexandria through the sewers.
Okay. Yeah.
This episode has been heavy. Tell me that you didn't need to see that hug. On to the penultimate episode of The Walking Dead. The liberated prisoners were returning to the city to overthrow Pamela and rescue the other children. Judith insists on going with Daryl, though. Definitely her father's daughter, that's for sure. Princess gets in touch with Mercer to help sneak the others into the city, and they plan to use the testimony of the liberated prisoners to legally remove the governor from office. The citizens in the city are very angry about the ruling, and there are more protests. Pamela is leading a horde to the city in an effort to stop the rebellion and maintain their grip of power. Classic dictator stuff, am I right? Aaron, Lydia, Elijah, and the others are traveling with the horde when Lydia gets bit, and they need to amputate her arm. Luckily, Aaron has experience with such a task. Governor Milton figures out what's going on with Mercer and has him arrested for treason.
Now, we've already lost contact with Echo and Theta.
Michael Mercer, you're under arrest for treason by order of Governor Milton. Any resistance...
Yeah, sure. Just ignore the guy trying to warn you about a huge zombie horde. That always goes well. Judith takes a bullet while pushing Maggie out of harm's way. Daryl rushes her to the hospital. And oh, look. The zombies are climbing the walls. Told you ignoring Mercer was a dumb idea. Pamela orders her troops to protect the homes of the elite, including her own, while the walkers flood the city. And now let's see what's in store for the series finale of The Walking Dead. Daryl, Carol, and Judith are in the hospital. Luke and his girlfriend didn't make it through the horde. Judith had lost a lot of blood, so Daryl decides to DIY a blood transfusion. I'm gonna be positive and hope that they have the same blood type. Get it? Be positive? Anyway, Daryl is a universal donor, turns out, and when Judith wakes up, she tells the others that Michonne left to find Rick, who she's pretty sure is still alive. Rosita rescues Coco with Gabriel and Eugene. She bashes through a horde of walkers, but gets bit in the process. Negan apologizes to Maggie. Princess and Max break Mercer out of jail. Mercer leads the heroes and his soldiers to the estates, where Pamela has hold herself up. Protesters are bashing at the gates. Mercer arrests Pamela, but she would rather die than go to jail, so she tries to feed herself to the zombified Lance. Maggie shuts that plan down real quick. With that out of the way, the gang opens the gates and lures the horde into the estates and blows it up with a whole bunch of dynamite. Would it even be a series finale without going out with a bang? The next day in Alexandria, Maggie tells Negan she'll never be able to forgive him, but she can begin to let go of her anger. Maybe they won't be besties, but they can at least live in the same town. Rosita succumbs to her bite, and everyone says their goodbyes. It's very sad. We cut to a year later. Governor Ezekiel is elected to lead the Commonwealth with Mercer as his second in command. Eugene and Max got married and have a kiddo now. Magna and Yumiko also got married. In Alexandria, Negan finally returns Judith's compass, and Carol has cut her hair short again. Daryl is setting off to find Rick again, and he and Carol share a sweet goodbye, but I'm sure they'll hang out again.
You're my best friend. Come here.
I just hope they made friendship bracelets. Remember Rick and Michonne? We finally get to see what they've been up to. Michonne has a sweet new outfit and continues her search for Rick. Rick is tracked down by the helicopter guys and raises his hands in surrender, but he smiles, so something tells me he's got a plan. Bonus round! Since the storyline of Rick and Michonne never wraps up in the original series, I thought I would do a nice recap of one of the spin-offs of the series, The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live. It's a 6-episode miniseries, so let's get right into it. In the first episode, we find out that Rick was brought to the Civic Republic of Philadelphia, a highly advanced civilization and dictatorial regime that no one is allowed to leave. Rick has been a co-signee forced to work for the Civic Republic military, killing walkers outside the city. The idea being after 6 years, you get to live a normal life on the inside.
For us consignees, though, we see that good life, man. You know, they got air conditioning, man. Air conditioning. I mean, no more swamp ass, you feel me?
That is a pretty good perk. On the downside, the CRM are huge fascists that bomb entire cities and decide who lives and dies. Shortly after his capture, Rick tries to escape by chopping off his hand, and he gets recaptured. So now he's down a hand for nothing. Bummer. Rick has tried to escape not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times unsuccessfully. Rick's boss is Lieutenant Colonel Donald Okafor, and he really wants Rick to be a part of the military, even though he's down a hand. Okafor says that he wants strong people with leadership abilities, such as Rick, to join the CRM and change it from the inside. He eventually agrees to join and accepts his new life. He even stops writing to Michonne. 5 years later, after the events of the series finale of The Walking Dead, Rick and Okafor are in a helicopter when they're shot down by an explosive projectile. Okafor fully explodes into a bloody mess. You've got something on your face there, Rick. The helicopter crashes, and the masked attacker takes out the 2 other soldiers with a really awesome katana, and the attacker is about to finish off Rick, but she takes off his mask first. Michonne and Rick are reunited. In this episode, we see what Michonne got up to after her storyline in the main series. Michonne, the kind of person that she is, saves a couple of people from a group named the Nomads. Their leader, Elle, tries to convince her to join the crew, but Michonne has her own friends and isn't interested, and they eventually let her leave with some sick new armor, weapons, and a horse. Awesome. Michonne obviously can't take down this horde by herself, even with cool weapons. Luckily, after some Nomad defectors, Nat Bailey and Aiden, the latter 2 being people she saved earlier, came to her aid and agree to help her search for Rick. On one bad day, the CRM attacks the city they're in with chlorine gas. Bailey and Aiden don't survive the bombing. Michonne and Nat leave together, and they spend the next year in the hospital trying to recover from the damage done to their lungs and throats. In the present day, Nat and Michonne eventually make their way towards Alexandria, and they see another freaking CRM helicopter. But Michonne and Nat are prepared this time and blast it down. Michonne finally reunites with her husband. Hooray! Nat is killed by a CRM soldier who survived the attack though. Less hooray. More soldiers are coming, so Rick insists she come up with a fake name and a cover story for the CRM. They have to pretend they don't know each other, but he promises they will escape together. Remember Junkyard Jadis? Well, she's here too and recognizes Michonne and knows she's lying about her identity. She threatens Rick, saying she will kill his family and friends if they try to escape. In the next episode, it's a flashback time again. Jadis has a chat with Rick, explaining that she and her old art buddies would trade people to the CRM in exchange for supplies and safety. Jadis is annoyed that Rick is ungrateful for saving his life in exchange for his involuntary servitude. He insists that he's going to escape. Back in the present, Rick asks a coworker, Thorne, to help Michonne get into the consignment program. Jadis blackmails Rick, reiterating that the CRM will kill everyone they love if they attempt to escape, all in the name of security and secrecy. Rick wants Michonne to escape by herself, but she ain't leaving without him. Getting there was a ton of work already. In the park, Michonne meets a guy that carved all those iPhones for Rick. Art can survive just about anything, and it gives Michonne a renewed sense of hope. Thorne has been promoted, and she does not like Michonne due to her leadership abilities. During a Walker fight, Michonne goes rogue and mows down a bunch of zombies. Thorne almost kills her, and Rick gets in trouble after preventing her from doing so. Rick tries to break up with Michonne in an attempt to save her, but she's having none of that and throws them both out of a helicopter during a thunderstorm. The next episode picks up right where the last one left off. Rick probably feels pretty silly after Michonne busted them out of the CRM so quickly. Who knew they just had to take a suicidal jump out of a helicopter? Rick and Michonne land outside of a community called Greenwood, which still has power, but no people. It's overrun with walkers, who I'm guessing don't even appreciate the air conditioning. Michonne tells Rick that they have a son together named Rick Jr. to try to convince him to return home. Rick is terrified to do so, as Jadis threatened to brutally murder everyone they know. Michonne's not happy about this, obviously, and they get into a huge fight. Rick and Michonne find out that the helicopter crashed, killing the other officers, meaning they have an opportunity to escape, as everyone will just think they're dead. Rick says he isn't leaving, as he wants to reform the CRM from the inside and complete Okafor's mission. Good luck with that, my guy. Michonne leaves without him, and Rick goes after her. A CRM helicopter bombs the building they're in to destroy evidence of their existence. Michonne and Rick get trapped inside the collapsing building with walkers. Michonne still tries to convince him to leave, but Rick is really dead set on getting this promotion. They fight a bunch of walkers and are really competitive about it, but they reconnect through this experience and have some fun time relations. Once they get to safety, obviously. Rick confesses that he can't see Carl's face anymore due to the traumas he suffered, and he's afraid he wouldn't survive losing anyone else, including Michonne, the love of his life. Michonne finally gets through to him with the power of iPhone art. Rick can see Carl again, and he's convinced to go home. But right now, they've really got to get out of this collapsing building, and they make it out in the elevator and escape in a nearby car, which has just enough gas to get them to Alexandria. The next episode begins with another flashback, where we find out that Jadis, aka Anne, has been up to this whole time. She meets up with her ex-boyfriend Gabriel once a year and has been privately telling him about the CRM's mission. She supports it, but she's conflicted. She doesn't tell him that she saved Rick, though. Gabriel keeps his faith in her, the evidence being that she never killed him, despite what he knows. In the present, Rick and Michonne are on a road trip. They are so in love, and it's so sweet. The couple spends the night in Yellowstone National Park, so it looks like they finally got a honeymoon. Jadis rudely interrupts their stay and unsuccessfully tries to kill them. They escape and engage in a car chase. Jadis sacrifices a few bandits to try and kill Michonne and Rick. Jadis says that if Rick doesn't come back, Alexandria will be destroyed. Rick agrees if she lets Michonne return home.
I said, drop it. Double-cross me.
This dynamic duo always has a good plan. Jadis is bitten by walkers before they can work things out, though, and Jadis says her death ensures Alexandria will be destroyed, but tells them where the dossier is located in the CRM Cascadia base. She hands them a ring that Gabriel intended to marry them with. Rick shoots Anne before she succumbs to the walker bite at her request. And now Rick and Michonne have to return to the CRM, but before that, Rick has a very important question. The newlywed couple takes Anne's helicopter to the CRM base to destroy their dossier and save Alexandria. And now for the final episode of The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live. Rick returns to the Cascadia base, claiming that Jadis sacrificed herself to save his life, and that he is the lone survivor. Rick has earned the trust of Major General Beale, who tells him that the CRM believes that humanity has only 14 years left to live, and they plan to declare martial law on the city and destroy all survivor communities across the world in order to ensure their own survival. And Beale has invited Rick to join him on this evil mission.
You are.
How kind. Rick doesn't accept the job offer, as you can see, though. Michonne sneaks onto the base and destroys the information Jadis had, revealing Alexandria's location. She sneaks into a briefing for the frontliners, where she learns that the CRM will be abducting select children from Portland before destroying the city with chlorine gas. Rick and Michonne rig up a bomb to destroy the CRM with chlorine gas. Thorne finally figured out what's going on between Rick and Michonne. The bomb goes off and the base is destroyed, with many soldiers killed or turned into walkers. Michonne kills off Thorne. The civilian government takes over, enabling free travel in and out of the city and reinstating democracy. But the best part? It took 14 years, 183 episodes, 2 series of television, and a whole lot of zombie guts. But Rick was finally reunited with his family, both the ones he lost in the past and the one he has in the present. And that was the entire story of The Walking Dead from start to finish. There is so much story in this universe that we could get into, but that's a wrap for today. Please, like, subscribe, comment, ring that bell, do all those other awesome things you people do, and let me know in the comments if you want more content on The Walking Dead universe. And I'll see you next time.